Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is part 13 of What If Naruto Became a Devil Ninja. If you guys enjoyed this what if, and want to see part 14 of it, comment down below, and let me know. Also check out previous parts of this what if. I have created a playlist for this what if, where you can find all the previous parts, link is in the description. And also go ahead and check out other what ifs in the channel. Before we start, please do support for more awesome content, it really means a lot. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like, and also share this video with your friends. So let's start this video. The situation couldn't have been more tense if a cadre of fallen angels walked through the doors right now and declared war on all of Devilkind. Nothing seemed out of place in the occult research club room. Everything looked just as it always did. The only difference between now and every other time Ria's Gremory and her peerage spent time in this room was the two guests sitting on the couch. Both of them looked like ordinary teenage girls, provided you discount the fact that they wore long tan cloaks and were carrying some kind of holy sword on them. Rias could feel the unusual amount of holy power radiating from the large object resting against the couch next to the girl on the left. It was wrapped in cloth, so she couldn't see anything, but judging from the shape, size and power radiating from it, it couldn't be mistaken for anything other than a holy sword. The one on the right had light brown hair and twin tails tied on either side of her head. Each tail was long, traveling all the way down to her backside. Her eyes were bright violet and, for reasons that Rias couldn't understand, the girl had an abnormally cheerful disposition. She just sat there, smiling brightly, seemingly unbothered by the fact that she was surrounded by a peerage of devils. The other girl had messy chin-length blue hair, yellow eyes and fair skin. While the twin-tailed girl's features were clearly of Japanese origin, this girl had the appearance of a European. One thing Rias noticed that seemed odd was the green fringe of hair on the right side of the girl's face. Unlike her companion, this girl was wearing her game face. Her eyes were completely blank, almost empty of all emotion save one. Complete and utter confidence in herself and her purpose. Both girls sat across from Rias, her peerage and Ravel who Rias let join them, all of whom were looking at the pair before them with distrust in their eyes. It probably wouldn't have been so bad, this tense situation, if it wasn't for the killing intent pouring off Kiba. Rias was actually worried about him, as the normally cordial blonde man looked ready to leap from behind the couch and attack the two girls. She could only hope he would keep his anger in check. "So you are the two members of the Vatican Church who requested to see me." Rias crossed her arms under her chest, presenting the image of a confident young woman. "I'm honestly quite surprised. I've never had a member of the church try contacting me before. Circumstances dictated that we have this meeting," the blue-haired one said. "Believe me when I say that we would never want to sully ourselves by being in the presence of devils if we could help it, but the situation we find ourselves in is strange." Rias ignored the insult. She knew what this girl was trying to do, baiting her into lashing out in order to gain the upper hand in their talks. It was a common tactic for when two forces of opposing ends underwent negotiations. However, Rias would not allow herself to be put into an unadvantageous situation. Nor would she allow herself to show weakness by letting someone from the church goad her into getting angry. So it seems. However, before this meeting can begin, I would like to know your names. You clearly know mine, which puts us at something of a disadvantage, not to mention it's only proper to give your names after seeking someone out. "Ah, that's right," the bubbly girl said. "We totally forgot to give our names. I'm Shido Rina, and this is Zenovia." Rias gazed at the cheerful girl, Irina. There was something odd about this girl. No one surrounded by a group of potential enemies should act so cheerful. Either this was just her base personality, or she simply did not feel threatened by the presence of numerous devils. "So I see. Very well then, you two have requested this meeting. What is it that you wish to discuss with me? Before we can tell you our request, it would be prudent to inform you of the situation at hand. That way you will have a better understanding of what's going to happen," the one named Zenovia said. "As you are probably aware, there are 6 holy swords known as Excalibur in the church's possession. What you probably do not know is that 3 of these swords, one belonging to the Catholic Church, the Protestant Church, and the Eastern Orthodox Church, were stolen recently." Rias didn't show how startled she was to hear this, instead choosing to think the situation over. Beside her, Ravel also furrowed her brow, and she knew the Phoenix heiress had probably already realized what this meant. "The fact that you coming to us means you've managed to track the thief to this location," Ravel determined. Rias had also come to this conclusion. "So the thief is here in Kuo, and I'm assuming the church sent you two to retrieve the Excaliburs." "That is correct. Irina and I were sent by the Vatican to retrieve of the holy sword's Excalibur." "Hold on." Rias turned her head to Issei, who stood behind her couch with Akeno, Ashia and Kiba. The young man looked confused. "I don't get it. You said holy swords, as in, like, plural, right? I always thought there was only one Excalibur." "That is only partly correct," Rias spoke before anyone else. "There was only one Excalibur. However, that was a long time ago. Sometime during the war between the 3 factions, Excalibur was broken. The fragments were then collected and reforged by the church." She turned to the 2 Vatican members. "Isn't that right?" Yes, that is correct, Irina said. Excalibur broke and was reforged by our alchemist. However, our alchemy wasn't strong enough to reforge Excalibur completely, and so it was forged into 7 different swords. This is my Excalibur. The cloak opened as Irina moved her arm, revealing the skin-tight black bodysuit underneath. Riaz absent-mindedly took note of the girl's voluptuous figure and supple muscles, showing that she'd clearly gone through intense physical training. The churchgoer then grabbed a small string tied around her right arm. The string lengthened and wiggled as if it was alive, and then it changed shape, straightening, solidifying, hardening, before eventually morphing into a long katana. Riaz eyed the weapon warily. She could feel the power it radiated. It was strong, but nothing for her to be concerned about. However, the eyes glanced at her peerage, seeing the different reactions. Ashia was clearly as frightened as she was awed. Riaz could only imagine that being in the presence of a holy sword brought the former non-conflicted feelings. Issei was taking care of her, though. He had an arm around her shoulder, while Akeno had one around them both. Sitting by her side, Kaneko scooted against her. She didn't know if the white-haired Neko Sho was afraid, but she clearly sought comfort, and as Naruto wasn't there, Riaz happily took his place. Her eyes then turned to Ravel. The girl was shaking. Riaz doubted the Phoenix heiress had ever been in the presence of a holy sword before, and it obviously frightened her. Riaz reached out and grabbed one of Ravel's hands. The blonde girl did not hesitate to squeeze back. This is Excalibur Mimic. It has the ability to change shape into anything I want it to, so it's really useful to have around. Unlike Zenobia, I can just carry it like this. The sword changed back into a string, which Irina then tied around her arm again. You shouldn't give away your Excalibur's power to a bunch of devils, Irina. Zenobia scolded her companion, only to soon realize that everyone was giving her expectant looks, including Irina. She sighed. This is my Excalibur. Zenobia unwrapped her weapon, revealing what appeared to be a giant sword. Riaz knew instantly just from the feelings it produced that this sword was more dangerous than Excalibur Mimic. It's called Excalibur Destruction. It was one of the 2 Excaliburs in possession of the Catholic Church. The Protestant Church and Eastern Orthodox Church also had 2 Excaliburs in their possession. There was a 7th Excalibur, but it was lost sometime after the war. Zenobia rewrapped the sword in its cloth. Riaz noticed the symbols on the fabric. The holy power that saturated the room disappeared, leading her to believe those symbols sealed away the sword, keeping others from sensing it. That meant it must have incredibly destructive powers. Then again, with a name like Excalibur Destruction, what else should she expect? And you believe the 3 Excaliburs that were stolen are somewhere in Kuo, Riaz stated. That is correct. We have managed to track the location of the people who stole the Excaliburs to this location. Riaz wondered if headaches were going to be the norm for her. First a group of fallen angels invaded her territory, then she had to deal with Rizer and his attempt at marrying her. And now she was dealing with 2 people from the church who had come here because 3 powerful holy swords had been stolen. How much more trouble was going to befall her territory? It seems my territory has been full of incidents like this lately. Do you know who stole the holy swords from you? We have reason to believe that they were stolen by members of the Grigori. So the Excaliburs were stolen by the Fallen Angels organization. Riaz wanted to rub her forehead to rid herself of the migraine, but she dared not show weakness in front of these 2. It seems like they're causing all kinds of problems recently, and it's definitely something they would do. Devils aren't really interested in holy swords, but the fallen angels, yes, I'm sure they'd love to get their hands on something like that. We already have a suspect who we believe is the main culprit behind the thefts. One of the Grigori leaders, Kakabiel. Pensive was the best word to describe how Riaz felt. She didn't let anyone know this, however, and instead presented the churchgoers with a smirk. So the theft was done by Kakabiel, one of the leaders of the Grigori, and a survivor of the war between the 3 factions. I suppose it only makes sense that someone like him would be behind the thefts. Kakabiel is one of the fallen angels that appear in the Bible, so he must be powerful. No one else would have the power to challenge the church and steal the holy swords. True. Kakabiel is definitely capable of doing something like that. We sent several exorcists here in secret to uncover his location, but they kept getting killed. Riaz felt a flare of anger. Exorcists were being sent into her territory without her knowledge. How was she unaware of this? If there was something going on in Kuo, then she should have known about it long before now. What's more, the church was sending exorcists into her territory without her consent or prior warning. It was an insult to her. They might as well just slap her in the face. At least then she would be able to retaliate. She kept her cool. Riaz wouldn't let this get to her. She was the heiress to the House of Gremory, so it was important to maintain appearances. And what is it you want from me? Zenobia raised an eyebrow. From you? Nothing. We want nothing from you. All we want, our request no, our demand is that you stay out of our affairs. What's happening here is between the church and the fallen angels. Devils have no business interfering in this. Okay, now that Riaz could not let stand. Let a pair of exorcists with holy swords wander her territory without supervision while chasing after a group of fallen angels being led by a Grigori leader, who just so happened to have stolen 3 holy swords. This girl must be nuts, if she thought Rias would just let them do as they please, especially when they had been sending other exorcists into her territory without asking first. You must be awfully worried, if you're coming here and trying to make demands of me. Are you worried that I might side with the fallen angels? Perhaps you're thinking that myself and my peerage might be in collaboration with the fallen angels to steal the holy swords Excalibur. Headquarters did not deny the possibility of that being the case, Zenobia said mildly, though Rias could detect the hint of threat in her tone. After all, holy swords are the enemy of your kind. They are one of your greatest weaknesses. The church understands this simple fact, and has come to realize that it wouldn't be all that unusual if the fallen angels and devils joined forces. Both sides stand to profit a lot if the holy swords went missing from the church. By now, almost everyone was staring at Zenobia with anger in their gaze sans Ashia, who was far too kind a person to show resentment in any fashion. She did look shocked, though. And even Irina looked startled by her teammate's words. Hey, Zenobia, that isn't what. That is why we are here. To deliver a warning. We came to tell you that, if you decide to side with the fallen angels and Hokage, then we won't hesitate to eliminate all of you. Some people would have probably been upset by the blatant disregard Zenobia spoke with when stating she would kill Rias and her peerage, but Rias only felt triumph. Don't make empty threats that we both know you can't keep. Zenobia's eyes hardened into a vitriolic glare. What was that? Do you think I'm stupid? Rias questioned, leaning forward on pinioning Zenobia with a glare of her own. It's well known that of the 3 factions to have partaken in the war, the angels suffered the most. Many of them were slain by fallen angels and devils, and even more fell after the war ended. You think I'm unaware of the real reason the church keeps mostly to itself these days? I know the real reason is because you lack the power to fight on par with devils and fallen angels. Even with God on your side, the angels faction is the weakest of the 3 right now. Zenobia hissed and Irina glared. How dare you? No, how dare you? Rias stood up and glared down at the 2, who tensed when she unleashed a small sliver of her devil power, which exceeded those of both the holy swords in the 2's possession by a wide margin. You think you can just waltz into my territory, demand that I stay out of your business, will you do who knows what, and then threaten to kill me, and my peerage without suffering any kind of consequences? Do you want to start a war? Because that is exactly what will happen, if you tried killing me. And you and I both know that restarting the 3 factions war is the last thing the church wants, isn't it? Her brother was Cersich's Lucifer, the most powerful Satan, a devil whose power is said to have exceeded all 4 of the original Satans combined. He was also a well-known Ciscon. Even the church had to know how protective her brother was of her. If they killed her, then Cersich's would rain unholy hell down upon the church. He would annihilate it before the angel faction even realized what was happening. The church would be no more. Irina and Zenobia remained silent, and Rias knew she had them. They were trapped and they knew it. Don't make threats you won't be able to back up, Rias warned Zenobia, who merely looked away. Rias sat back down, and regained her composure. Now then, you mentioned each church still having 3 Excaliburs, yet I only see 2 with you. Has the last one not been dispatched yet? Zenobia said nothing, obviously miffed from Ria's scathing words, so it was up to Irina to pick up the slack. No, they're staying with the Orthodox Church. They plan on protecting the last Excalibur in case Zenobia and I fail. So it's just the 2 of you, then? Isn't it reckless to send only 2 people to retrieve the stolen Excaliburs? Even if you are holy sword wielders, you're still going after Hokage, a fallen angel who is one of the leaders of the Grigori. I doubt 2 humans would be able to defeat someone like him, even if they each possess their own Excalibur, especially since he has 3 in his possession. That doesn't matter. We can't allow the Excaliburs to remain in the hands of the Grigori. I don't want to die, but I am prepared to, if it means doing God's will. I see the teachings of the church are as extreme as always. Don't speak ill of the church, Rias Gremory. We might have gotten off on the wrong foot, but even so, I won't have you saying bad things about our teachings. You're right. I'm sorry, Rias apologized sincerely, which surprised Irina. You are entitled to your beliefs, and I certainly shouldn't insult someone for believing in something. That being said, what if you can't retrieve the holy swords with just the 2 of you? What then? We would like to retrieve the Excaliburs, of course, but we have been told that, should we be unable to retrieve them, then we should destroy them. Better to have them destroyed than in the hands of the enemy. Our minimum objective is to get the Excaliburs out of fallen angel hands. How that is accomplished will be up to us. Out of the corner of her eye, Rias saw Kippa tense. The look on his face startled her. She knew of his past, of what he'd been through, but she never expected to see such a dark, angry expression on his face. That look of hatred he possessed worried her greatly. Rias decided that she would need to speak with Kippa soon. I don't have a problem with your goals, Rias told the 2 holy sword users, who relaxed at her words. However they tense, well, I do not disagree with them. You must understand that given what's happening, I cannot allow 2 members of the church to run around in my territory unattended. But that's... Please let me finish. Ryuz held a hand up, forestalling Arena, who'd been about to speak out. I will allow you to conduct your mission to seek out and reclaim the stolen Excaliburs, but I can't let you do so unattended. Ryuz smiled when Arena and Zenobia stiffened in their seats. Tell me, do you two have a place to stay? Devil and INJ. Ryuz wondered if some part of her had been corrupted by Keno's sadistic nature. There weren't many other reasons she could think of that explained why she was taking mild pleasure in the discomforting expressions of Arena and Zenobia as they sat at her dinner table. After working out the details of their stay in Kuo City, it had been decided by Ryuz that she would take the churchgoers into her home, allowing them to use her mansion as a base of operations while searching for the stolen Excaliburs. The two had tried protesting, claiming that they couldn't spend time in the house of the devil, but Ryuz refused to back down, telling them that it was either they accept her decision or get out of her town. Which was how they found themselves in their present situation, with Zenobia and Arena sitting at her dinner table, trying not to be unnerved by the bored stare Kaneko gave them. Yes, it definitely amused Ryuz a great deal, to see the two people who tried threatening her into complying with their demands, cowed by a 15-year-old girl. It felt almost like winning an all-paid vacation to a luxurious hot spring resort. Ryuz saw it, Ravel called out, I've finished adding all the ingredients. What do I need to do next? Ryuz turned to Ravel. Like her, the young blonde girl was wearing an apron over her academy uniform. Ravel's apron was purple on the bottom, while the chest piece consisted of a red heart with pink frills. Ryuz thought it suited the girl. She then looked down at her own apron, which seemed almost plain in comparison. However, that was only to those who didn't know how amazing this apron really was. While its color was plain white and bland, there was a large image of a cutting knife stamped on its chest, and the words I am the bone of my skillet, written underneath the image. It was a gag gift that Naruto bought for her, when they celebrated their 1-month anniversary. Just continue stirring for now. How much longer does the pork have? Ravel looked at the kitchen timer, which Ryuz couldn't see because the phoenix airs blocked her view. It says we have 5 more minutes. Good. That should be plenty of time to finish with the rest of the food. After Ryuz snapped out of her funk caused by Naruto's kidnapping, Ravel had come asking if she would be willing to teach her how to cook. Ryuz had been surprised, but soon learned that Ravel's only talent in the kitchen was baking desserts. She couldn't cook a decent meal to save her life, thus Ryuz decided to teach her. It would be a good opportunity to learn more about the younger girl anyway. They worked together in the kitchen, preparing the meal. Ravel listened to everything Ryuz said, hanging off the older woman's words like they were a lifeline. It was really cute to see how eager the girl was to please. She always made up excuses like, I am only doing this because you accepted me into your house, or don't look too into it. I'm just helping out because I'm a guest here. It's only right, but Ryuz knew the real reason, even if Ravel refused to admit it. The food was soon prepared. Ryuz and Ravel put all of it on several trays and brought it into the living room. Kaneko's eyes instantly tracked the food as it was brought in. Even Zenobia and Arena were not immune to the scent of the well-prepared meal, and Ryuz watched in amusement as the two sniffed the air. Was Zenobia drooling? Well, here you two are. I don't know if Japanese cuisine is to your taste since you two live in Europe, but I hope you enjoy it. Needed Akimasu. Kaneko didn't even wait for the others before she began eating. She just started digging in. Ryuz wasn't bothered by that. It was just how the girl was. What bothered her were the two churchgoers. They were saying grace. Oh, Lord. Please forgive us for accepting this devil's hospitality, and bless this food. Also, please bless the devils who made this food, for even though they are creatures of sin, they have still accepted us into their home. Ouch. Ravel nearly fell off her chair as God's blessing was drilled into her head like a stake. Ryuz winced, but didn't react otherwise. She still gave the two a dry look, however. I don't mind if you two pray, but please refrain from asking God to bless us. Zenobia and Arena looked at each other, and then Arena turned a sheepish expression on Ryuz. Aha, sorry about that. I forgot the devils can't accept God's praise. It's fine. Now then, why don't we dig in? They began to eat. Ryuz maintained her poise and dignity while eating, even though she could feel 2 sets of eyes on her. The holy sword users kept sending her glances. She ignored them for the moment, knowing they were nervous and wanting to make them sweat some more. She needed them off balance. The more out of sorts they were, the easier it would be to deal with them. After dinner, Ryuz took their dishes to the sink. Arena actually tried to protest, but Ryuz would have none of it. You two are guests in this house, she said, and I will not be a bad host. Arena had eventually backed down, even though having a devil they'd almost gotten into a row with treating them so kindly had to bother her. Zenobia certainly seemed troubled, as she had barely said 2 sentences since they arrived. After putting the dishes in the sink and summoning her familiar to wash them, Ryuz walked back into the living room and clapped her hands. I hope you two enjoyed the food. It was very good, Arena said, apparently trying to be a good guest, even though she was clearly bothered by the whole situation. It's been a long time since I've had traditional Japanese cuisine. That's right, you grew up with this, didn't you? Rias knew, of course, because Issei told her about what happened when he arrived home one night to find these two at his house. Irina nodded. Issei-kun and I used to play together a lot. We were really good friends back then, before my parents and I moved. I was pretty surprised to find out that he became a devil. Rias didn't really like the glare being sent her way, but also understood Irina's anger. If it makes you feel any better, he only became a devil because it was the only way I could save him. You see, before I knew him, Issei ended up getting involved with a fallen angel. What? How? Why? Don't look so shocked. You should know by now that Issei is a holder of the boosted gear, one of the 13 Longjin is said to be capable of killing a god. The fallen angels found out and one of them decided to get rid of Issei, before he became a problem. This fallen angel, a girl named Rainer, killed him, but I managed to bring him back, reviving him as a devil. I didn't know that, Irina admitted. I still don't like how you revived him as a devil, though. Rias shrugged. She didn't really care. Issei was her servant now, a member of her family, and someone important to her queen Inashia. She wouldn't be relinquishing him to anyone. In either event, you two must be tired from your long journey here, and I doubt you've had much chance to relax. I have a hot spring in the back that you two can use. Irina, I'm sure it's been a long time since you've had the chance to relax in an authentic Japanese hot spring. While Irina almost sparkled at the idea of being able to experience the joys of traditional Japanese bathing in a hot spring, Zenobia looked skeptical. Why are you doing this? She asked. First you confront us like you did during our meeting, and now you're treating us with kindness. It doesn't make sense. What are you after? At her words, Irina went on guard. Rias affected a mock-hurt expression. Come now, do you really think so little of me? Is there something wrong with me helping two people out of the kindness of my heart? Zenobia snorted. What kindness? You're a devil. Everyone knows that devils aren't the kindest of people. Ria's eyes hardened. You would do well to watch what you say. It is indeed true that not all devils are kind. That's somewhat cruel. However, I wouldn't hear something like that from a member of the church. There is plenty about your group that doesn't show you people in the best light, plenty of dirty little secrets and atrocities that the church has committed in the name of God. They speak of us devils as if we're a bunch of monsters, but I know for a fact that some of the greatest monsters on this planet are human, and some of those monsters are members of your church. Zenobia gritted her teeth, while Irina looked worried. Rias relaxed, presenting the two with a smile. But let us not speak of this anymore. You two are obviously tired, which I'm sure is the reason for your lack of tact. Please accept this small token of my hospitality and enjoy some time bathing in the hot spring. I'm sure you won't regret it. It was late at night. The sun had fallen, and millions of twinkling stars dotted the twilight sky. Kiba didn't much care for the stars, or the sky, or anything, really. At that moment, the only thing on his mind was what occurred a few hours ago. What was Rias thinking, speaking to those two holy sword users, when she should have just told them to leave? Or better yet, told Kiba to kill them. Rias knew about his hatred for holy swords better than anyone, yet she still allowed those two to stay in Kuo. Worse still, she was allowing them to spend their time in the city at a residence. It infuriated Kiba. He loved Rias like an older sister, but he couldn't abide by what she was doing, especially not since she knew of his intense hatred for holy swords. Not really knowing what else to do, and feeling no desire to return home, Kiba wandered aimlessly. The streets were abandoned. There was barely any light to illuminate his path. A street lamp to his left flickered, emitting an annoying buzzing sound. He ignored it and continued walking on, struggling to maintain a grip on his rage. As he passed by a street sign, a flicker of killing intent shot through his senses. Kiba reacted on nothing more than instinct, summoning his holy eraser sword and spinning around to block the incoming attack. Clang. Sparks flew as his sword was met by another sword. He didn't recognize the make, but he didn't need to. He could feel the holy power coming from it. A holy sword. The wielder of the holy sword leapt back when Kiba pushed the sword away and tried cutting the person in half. That was when he got a good look at who attacked him, and Kiba's eyes widened in shock. Here, Fried Selzen. It was, indeed, the exiled priest that he, Issei and Kaneko, fought to rescue Ashia from the fallen angels. He didn't appear to have changed a bit. He still wore the robes of an exorcist. His white hair remained the same length. His eyes still held the same insane bloodlust as before. Kiba was also disgusted to notice that his tongue still hung from his mouth, as if the thought of battling and killing was causing him to salivate like a dog in the summer heat. Well, hello, shitty devil scum. Fancy running into you here. What are you doing here, Fried? Fried grinned maniacally at him. I'm glad you asked. My boss doesn't need me for anything right now, so I was wandering around looking for something to do. I'm so bored, you know. Any time not spent killing shitty devil scum like you is time wasted. That's why I was out trying to see if I could find one of you guys to play with. I'm glad it's you. I was hoping to have a rematch. I have to pay you back for the humiliating defeat you gave me. Now let's dance. Fried came in fast. Kiba raised his blade and quickly blocked the series of strikes sent at him. Was it just him, or had Fried become even faster than the last time they fought? Clang clang clang. Their blades clashed several times. Kiba backpedaled as Fried slashed away at him with a mad series of blurring strikes. Yes, he noted, the insane priest had definitely become much faster than the last time they fought. It seems you haven't lost your touch. And it seems you're still as insane as ever. Only a person who doesn't understand the definition of insanity would say that. Deciding to go on the offensive, Kiba attacked with several swift strikes. Overhead, underhand, horizontal, vertical. His blade moved as a series of flashes that were met by another blade moving just as fast. Every time he struck, Fried's holy sword was there to meet him, keeping him from skewering the insane priest. It was beginning to infuriate him. They broke apart and Kiba stared at the sword in Fried's hand. That blade. Do you like it? This baby's name is Excalibur rapidly. It's one of the 7 holy swords created from the fragments of the original Excalibur. I've been wanting to test it out on you devils. I want to see how quickly it can kill you. Kiba's anger surged. He charged Fried head-on, attacking and counter-attacking with a ferocity he rarely possessed. Every strike he tried landing was a killing blow. A thrust to the chest. A strike at the neck. An attempt at cutting Fried in half from the waist. Much to his mounting frustration, none of his precisely timed and incredibly swift attacks landed. Fried matched him blow for blow. Oh, you good. You're so good. Yes. Yes. Let's take this up a notch, shall we? The Excalibur ruler in Fried's hand began to glow. And then the unthinkable happened. Shatter. Kiba stared in shock as his holy eraser shattered small fragments. He jumped backwards as a laughing Fried tried taking advantage of his distracted state. The holy sword missed cutting him, embedding itself in the ground where he'd been standing, gouging out a large furrow in the road. Fried pulled the sword out of the ground, grinning. What's the matter? Is your shitty little devil ass scared? Kiba began laughing, but there was no mirth to it. His laugh was harsh, dark and grating, nothing at all like Kiba's normal laughter. Scared? No, why would I be scared? You've just given me a great gift. Swords began to appear around Kiba, dozens of them, all of them poised to attack Fried at the slightest provocation. Here I was upset because I had an Excalibur right in front of me and couldn't destroy it, and now you're here, carrying another Excalibur. It must be my lucky day. You see, I've made it my goal to destroy Excalibur, and now that you've appeared before me, I can do just that. Kiba's cold smile was met with an insane one from the exiled priest. Now that's the spirit. This is the fight I've been waiting for. Let's see which is greater, you shitty-ass demonic swords. Or my Excalibur rapidly. Kiba didn't hesitate to take the invitation offered. Several dozen demonic swords were launched at Fried, who began destroying them with Excalibur rapidly. The battle was on. Irina sighed in content as she slowly lowered her body into the hot spring. She sank in until only the top of her breasts floated above the water's surface, then leaned back against the warm stones that made up the spring. It felt so nice, the warm waters lapping at her body, relieving the aches and pains from spending several hours on a plane, and then several more walking. She decided right then that few things were better than a soak in a hot spring. I know this is the first time you've had a chance to experience these hot springs, Irina, but try not to let your guard down. Don't forget that we're currently in the middle of devil territory in Ria's Gremory's home no less. We can't afford to become complacent. Irina pouted at her partner for this mission. Zenobia was her friend, but sometimes their personalities had a tendency to clash. While she always tried to remaining bright and cheerful, the wielder of Excalibur destruction remained serious at all times. It kind of bothered her. I know that, Zenobia. Do you? Of course I do. I understand that we can't trust devils. You certainly don't act like it. That was uncalled for. I'm just trying to keep the peace. In case you haven't realized it, we're at a disadvantage here. We can't start a fight with the Gremory group. We're outnumbered here, and that Ria's Gremory is a powerful opponent. Surely you felt the power she released during our meeting. Zenobia hesitated. It was only for a second, but Irina could see the small flash of worry that crossed her partner's eyes. I did. Then you know why we can't afford to fight with them. I'm not too thrilled about being forced into living here and having the eyes of a devil peerage on us either, but I also want to accomplish our mission. If we die fighting the devils, then we can't retrieve the stolen Excaliburs. I know that, Zenobia mumbled, and Irina knew she'd won this round. It wasn't like she didn't understand Zenobia's concerns, but they had to look at the bigger picture. If they ended up fighting the devils and dying, then they would fail in their mission before they could even start. They couldn't allow that to happen. The sound of a door sliding open caused them to look up. Rias walked into the hot spring wearing nothing but a towel. Behind and on either side of her were the equally naked Kaneko and Ravel, whose blonde locks had been let down from their usual drills. What are you doing here? Zenobia asked suspiciously. Ria's Gremory gave the Excalibur Destruction's wielder an amused smile. Relax, I simply decided to also take a bath in the hot spring. After all, this is my house. Irina wondered if it was wrong of her to feel slight envy as she watched Rias wade into the steam-covered waters. She knew that she was quite well endowed, but the Destruction Princess's bust was astonishing. Her breasts were so large they were actually floating as she sat next to them. Let me wash your hair, Yakitori. Stop calling me Yakitori. I'm not Yakitori. Would you prefer it if I called you KFC? Shut up, you stupid cat. Irina's eyes were drawn to Kaneko and Ravel. The Phoenix heiress was sitting on a stool. Kaneko sat behind her, rubbing shampoo into the other girl's hair. Ravel was pouting, her cheeks flushed and pink. She looked oddly conflicted, like she wanted to be there but at the same time didn't. What an unusual pair. So how is it? Excuse me. This is the first time you've been in a hot spring in a while, right? Ria's disarming smile put Irina on guard. How does it feel? It's nice, Irina admitted slowly. She knew that they couldn't afford to let their guard down around this woman. At the same time, she didn't know what to think about one Ria's grummery. The little sister of the Sursich's Lucifer confused her greatly. I'm glad. Ria's looked around at the hot spring, and for just a second, an expression of melancholy flickered across her face. It's been a while since I've actually been in here. Irina's curiosity was piqued. Why is that? Because I usually spend time in this hot spring with Naruto, and without him here, this place just feels empty. Naruto. I'm sorry, I forgot you don't know anyone in my peerage besides Issei. Naruto is another member of my peerage and also my boyfriend. This house was actually where his apartment used to be before my brother rebuilt it into this mansion. I see. Irina didn't know what to make of that. Her brother demolished an apartment complex to make this mansion. Seriously? What kind of people were these gremmeries? So, you said Naruto isn't here with you. Why is that? Because he's missing. Missing? Rhea sighed. Since I'm keeping you two here, I suppose it's only fair that I tell you. Naruto was kidnapped by a group of unknown people a little over 2 weeks ago. We don't know why they wanted him, but he hasn't returned yet. Irina didn't know why she felt pity for the devil before her. Maybe it was simply because of her religion. God always mentioned how you should show compassion to others, even your enemies. I'm sorry. Don't be. Rhea shook her head. I'm positive that Naruto is okay, and that he has a reason for not returning yet. Her smile returned, holding a hint of mischief. Trust me on this, Naruto isn't the type of person to just let himself be taken. If he's still missing, then it's not because he's being held captive, but because he decided not to return yet. Now it's my turn. Ha. How do you like that? Once again, everyone looked at Ravel and Kaneko. They had traded places. Now it was Phoenix Girl washing the Neko Show's hair. She was scrubbing really hard, as if she was trying to dig her fingernails into Kaneko's head. Kaneko yawned. You need to try harder than that, Yakitori. What? I'll show you. TCH. That feels annoying. You're not very good at washing hair, are you, Yakitori Heim? You? I'll fry you. Try it and I'll make KFC out of you. Do those two always fight like that? Asked Irina. Reyes continued watching the two for a second, her amused smile showing what she thought of the pair's antics. Not always. They're actually really good friends. This is just their way of messing around. I think. You seem to have a lot of faith in this Naruto guy, Zenobia said, bringing attention back to their original conversation. It sounds to me like he was pretty weak, getting himself captured by a group of people. Reyes glared at Zenobia. Irina wanted to groan. While she actually agreed with her partner, it really wasn't a good idea to state their opinions so blatantly like that, especially since Rias and this Naruto character were apparently dating. Knowing Naruto-senpai, the reason he probably hasn't returned yet is because he's found a really cute girl and wants to pamper her. All eyes turned to Kaneko. At some point she and Ravel had made their way into the hot spring. The Neko Show made her way to Rias and sat down, then crossed her arms, and swelled her cheeks up in a pout that even Irina couldn't help but find cute. I'm the only one he should be pampering. Rias placed a hand on the Neko Show's head and began petting. Don't worry, Kaneko. I'm sure Naruto isn't pampering some girl he just met because she's cute. Somewhere in an undisclosed location, Naruto sneezed. I bet Naruto-sama is just gathering information on those people who kidnapped him, Ravel added her own input. He's a ninja, right? Every good ninja knows that accurate intelligence is the key to taking down the enemy. I'm positive that's the reason for his prolonged absence. You know an awful lot about ninja, Rias said. That's because. It's because she was always talking to Naruto-senpai, whenever you weren't spending time with him, Kaneko said. I sometimes saw them sitting together during lunch, and he would regale her with tales of his time as a ninja. I don't want to hear that out of you, Ms. I love getting my head pat by Naruto-sama. A red-faced Raven shouted. And don't make it sound like I was the only one monopolizing Naruto-sama's time. You were always with us. Better to have my head pat than waste time fawning over someone who already has 2 women in his life. What was that? Naruto-senpai belongs to me and Rias. Whatever. Like hair for that really kind eye, I mean really stupid blonde devil. Are you talking about yourself? Irina wasn't sure if the way Ravel's face turned red was due to the water or Kaneko's words. Given that her head spontaneously combusted despite how they were in a hot spring, Irina was inclined to believe it was the latter. Rias turned back to Zenobia. Of course I have faith in him. Naruto is the strongest member of my peerage and my boyfriend. He's also one of the most amazing people I know, always helping others, always doing what's right even at personal cost to himself. You won't find a person better than him. You make it sound like he's some kind of saint instead of a devil. It might be hard for you to swallow, but not all devils are evil, you know. I'll admit, we're greedy. Unlike the angels, we devils live according to our desires. We don't deny ourselves what we want. When we want something, we strive to claim it for ourselves. However, greed isn't always a bad thing. Zenobia snorted, clearly not believing a word Rias said. Irina didn't either, but now she was curious. How can you say something like that? Greed is one of the 7 deadly sins. Allowing your greed to get the better of you is one of the worst sins a person can commit. I'm a devil, so greed doesn't affect me the way it does you humans. What did that mean? Irina wondered. Were devils somehow immune to the corrupting effects of greed? Well, they were devils, so they were already corrupted. Maybe that's what Rias meant. So how do you two have a plan for retrieving the stolen Excaliburs? Asked Rias, drawing attention to herself again. Irina and Zenobia looked at each other, silently debating the merits of telling Rias their plan. In the end, they decided to go with the truth. Not like it mattered since Rias would be having someone watch them for the duration of this mission anyway. We were just planning on wandering the city during the night, where the attacks took place, Irina said. Pavel, his head stopped combusting when Kaneko dunked her under the water trying to put the fire out. She claimed sent one last glare at the Neko show between the strands of blonde hair stuck to her face, then looked at Irina. So you're basically trying to lure him out by visiting the places that the other exorcists were killed. I bet you two were hoping to lure him out by using yourselves as bait, weren't you? Pavel's almost smug look caused Irina to feel embarrassed. Had their plan really been that easy to see through? She thought it was a rather good plan, but if a 15-year-old girl could see through it so easily, maybe they needed to rethink their plans. The smug expression on Ravel's face was soon wiped off when Kaneko pushed her head back underneath the water. Don't look so smug, Yakitori. A flurry of bubbles as Ravel superheated the waters was the answer Kaneko received. The Neko show jumped back as the water exploded in a spray of steam. An angry Ravel leapt out from the white smoke screen, lunging at the other girl, who dodged to the side. Irina, Rias, and Zenobia watched in mute silence as the Phoenix heirs chased Kaneko around the hot spring. Ravel's head was on fire. Irina wondered if the reason was because she wasn't a mature devil. Were her powers not fully under her control yet? Well, Rias stood up and smiled at the two. I don't know about you two, but I think I'm gonna get out. Irina looked from Rias to the other 2 devils. Get back here. No? She looked back at Rias, and then stood up. I think I'm going to follow your example. Rias' answering smile was strangely relaxing. Irina knew she couldn't let her guard down, but for some reason, seeing that genuine smile made her feel at ease. It bothered her a great deal. Zenobia also decided to follow their example and leave. Irina imagined that her friend just didn't want to be alone with 2 devils, even if they were acting like immature children at the moment. As the 3 walked out of the hot spring, they could hear the continued splashing and angry shouting behind them. Stop running. Don't wanna. I'm gonna fry you. You can try, Yakitori. Stop calling me that. Devil Ninja. The next morning Rias called Sona and informed Kuo Academy's Kaichu that she and her peerage would not be attending school for a while. Her best friend seemed curious, but accepted her words and said that she would let the teachers know. She did ask how long Rias and her peerage planned on being absent, however, and the ruined princess had been forced to admit that she didn't know. Sona reluctantly agreed after that. That morning breakfast was served courtesy of Rias and Ravel. They used the formal dining room several buildings away from the living room. The table was longer, and therefore capable of fitting more people, which was good, because there were a lot of people that morning, her entire peerage plus Ravel, Irina, and Zenobia. As her gaze swept over the table, Rias frowned when she noticed someone missing. Issei sat between Ashia and Akeno. Akeno was teasing the two about something, and Issei and Ashia were getting embarrassed. Kaneko traded barbs with Ravel, or rather, the Neko show fired off sharp insults, while the Phoenix heirs blew her top. Irina and Zenobia mostly stuck to themselves, sitting as far from the group of devils as possible. Kiba was not there. A glance around the room revealed where her knight was. He stood by the doorway, leaning against the wall, arms crossed, brooding. Ria's inside squirmed. The dark expression on his face did not sit well with her. She really needed to speak with him soon, preferably after this meeting was over. After everyone finished breakfast, Rias had her familiar take the trays and plates away. Now that we've all had a chance to eat, I believe it's time we discuss the latest problem here in Kuo, the stolen Excaliburs. She looked at the Phoenix heirs. Ravel. Ah, yes, Rias-sama. Ravel leapt to her feet and stretched her hands over the table. A red magic circle with the Phoenix family crest appeared on the table. From within the crest, a map of Kuo's city materialized. She then took a deep breath, and, quite suddenly, a 3-dimensional version of the map projected itself into the air. Rias-sama and I have been talking with Irina and Zenobia about the stolen Excaliburs. From our discussions, we have managed to pick out all of the known locations where exorcists sent by the church were attacked and killed. As Ravel spoke, several red circles appeared on the screen, designating the places where exorcists had been attacked. The circles were then connected by a series of lines that ran through the city. All of the lines traveled inward, intersecting with each other to form a small pentagon in the center. As you can see, all of the attacks that took place were done so within a 5-kilometer radius of this spot, Ravel said, tapping on this small pentagon. While we have no definite proof, logic dictates that whoever has stolen the Excaliburs and been attacking exorcists is operating out of this area. Before Ravel could speak any further, Issei interrupted. So, yeah, this is great and all, but I'm not really sure what this has to do with us. I mean, it's the church's problem, right? Why are we getting involved? I thought Rias Bucho didn't like us being involved with the other factions because of how dangerous it is. While Ravel glared at being interrupted, Rias smiled and said, well, it is definitely a problem for the church, it is also our problem. The Excaliburs are powerful holy swords, more than capable of destroying low-class and mid-class devils with ease. The fact that a group of fallen angels has 3 of them in their possession is cause for great concern. Issei, you should know well how vicious their faction can be. I would rather have those weapons in the hands of the church than the fallen angels. Issei seemed to think on that, eventually nodding. Then he noticed Ravel glaring at him for interrupting her, and shuddered at the fiery expression. You can, continue now, and stuff, don't mind me. Ravel tried killing him via her eyes a second longer, then huffed and continued speaking. The plan that Ryasama and I have come up with is simple. Our first job is to gather accurate intelligence. We're going to split everyone into groups of 3. Ryasama, myself and Arena will make one group, Issei, Akeno, and Ashia another, and Kiba, Kaneko, and Zenobia will form the last group. Ashia. Once again, Ravel found herself interrupted, not by Issei this time, but Zenobia, who peered at Ashia with narrow-eyed. She is talking about you, right? Ashia almost seemed to shrink in on herself. Yes, she is. I see. Then that would make you Ashia Argento, wouldn't it? The person who was once proclaimed as a holy maiden, but was later exiled as a witch. That is you, right? Well. Wait. Arena looked at her in shock. Are you really the witch, Ashia Argento? I heard you were exiled because you could heal devils and ended up joining the fallen angels. Who would have thought that you would become a devil yourself? Ashia's body shook. Tears welled up in her eyes. Ryuz felt a flash of anger at Zenobia for bringing attention to Ashia's status. She knew that the former nun still felt guilty about becoming a devil, even thought she was also happy. The girl remained a devout believer in God even to this day, and knowing that she couldn't even pray without suffering intense pain hurt her. Before Ryuz could snap at the two for their crass disregard of Ashia's feelings, Issei stood up and slammed his hands on the table, glaring at him. I think you two should stop talking while you're ahead. Neither of you has the right to criticize Ashia for the choices she's made in her life, especially when everything that happened was the church's fault. You think Ashia Argento's exile was our fault? Zenobia also stood up, placing her hands on the table and leaning over to penetrate him with a glare. You're clearly a very deluded young man for thinking something so stupid. Hey now, let's try not to fight, Zenobia, Arena said, attempting to keep her friend from becoming confrontational. What was that? Issei hissed at Zenobia, his brows furrowed in anger. You heard me. Ashia was exiled because she healed a devil. To commit such an act is an atrocity against God and cannot go unpunished. It's blasphemy. Quite frankly, I'm surprised the church even decided to let her live. Once a holy maiden falls out of God's grace, they are destined to live a cursed life, unable to hear God's call, no longer capable of spreading God's word. There is no more purpose to their life. They might as well be dead. Ryuz felt a mild pulse. She directed her gaze to Issei's arm, to the small gem situated on top of his hand. I see, the boosted gear reacts to the emotions of the wearer. Ryuz smiled. It's just as Naruto said. Issei, you really. That's how you feel, isn't it, Ashia Argento? Zenobia directed her gaze toward the former nun, who quaked underneath those yellow eyes. You feel lost, right? I bet you even still believe in God despite becoming a devil. Is it even possible? Arena asked. It's perfectly possible. While there are some who try to forget about their former life under God's grace, there are just as many who can never truly let go. They feel guilty for being unable to live in the grace of God, and it eats them up inside. That's how it is with you, right? Ashia breathed in deeply. Ryuz was impressed when she saw the former nun regain her composure. Staying under the same roof as Akeno must have done the girl good. Yes, it's true. Even though I've become a devil, I still believe in God's teachings. I've been a servant of God all my life. I can't let go of that now, even if I am a devil. While Arena looked genuinely surprised, Zenobia nodded to herself, as if she just solved the mystery. In that case, you should let me kill you. Even though you've fallen from grace and become a devil, I am sure that God will forgive you if you repent your sins by allowing a member of the church to end your life. Okay, enough was enough. Ryuz had stayed silent because Issei spoke up on Ashia's behalf, but this was too much for her to bear. Ashia was a member of her family, her peerage. She was important to Rias, and the ruined princess would not allow Zenobia or anyone else to insult someone so dear to her. Who the hell do you think you are? Once more, Issei's loud shout reverberated through the room, silencing everyone. You think you can talk to Ashia like that? Who cares if she's fallen from God's grace? What the fuck has he ever done for her? All of you people, you treat Ashia as if she was some kind of thing. You put her on a pedestal and tell her to heal others, then exile her because she did exactly what you told her to do. How fucked up is that? Did any of you even think about Ashia's feelings? About what she wanted? All Ashia ever wanted out of life was friends, to stand by her side, not worshippers who treated like an object, to be watched from afar, and then treat her like crap, because she failed to live up to the expectations those same people put on her shoulders in the first place. They say. Zenobia scoffed. Friends. A holy maiden doesn't need friends. The love of God is all they need to sustain them. People who feel they need more than God's love aren't cut out to be holy maidens in the first place. Were you even listening to me? Ashia never wanted to be a holy maiden in the first place. You guys were the ones who forced that title on her. You demanded that she be something she didn't want to be, and Ashia, amazing, wonderful and kind girl that she is, did exactly what you wanted. She became your holy maiden even when it meant that she would be unhappy. She did everything you wanted of her, and you threw her away, because you found out that she could heal devils. You're the ones who failed Ashia, not the other way around. Issei's nostrils flared as his harsh eyes stared into Zenobia's. Moving behind Issei, Akeno placed a shoulder around the blonde girl, who leaned into the Yumeto Nadeshiko's bosom. Rias watched it all and decided that now was the time to step in. Enough. Now is neither the time nor the place for our two sides to fight with each other, she snapped, her own not insignificant powers flaring, causing the others to cease what they were doing, and stare at her. Rias matched their glare, and then exceeded them, forcing Issei and Zenobia to stand down. Seeing the two sit back down, Rias let her powers go, though her glare remained. Zenobia, I would appreciate it if you never spoke to my servants like that again. They are my family. Any insult made to them is an insult made to me. You would do best to remember that. Come on, Zenobia. Irina placed a hand on the other Excalibur wielder's shoulder. I thought we agreed not to start trouble. Rias watched Zenobia tisk and look away from her friend. She then turned to Issei. Issei? Yes ma'am. Issei unconscious straightened in his seat and visibly tried not to sweat. He became confused when Rias gave him a disarming smile. Thank you for defending Ashia. I'm very glad to see that my choice in letting her stay with you was correct. Keep up the good work. Embarrassed, Issei bashfully scratched at his cheek. It was nothing. Anytime. Rias looked around before noticing something. Where is Kiba? Kiba? Akeno also looked around before she too noticed that the knight was missing. She put a hand to her cheek. Oh dear, you don't think he already left, do you? Ravel, why don't you continue briefing the others on the intricacies of our plan? I need to find and talk to Kiba. Okay, Rias-sama. While Ravel started going over the intricacies of the plan that she and Rias had conceived in more detail, the ruined princess rushed out of the room and began searching for Kiba. He couldn't have gotten far, and he hadn't. She found him not long after leaving the room, standing out in one of several gardens, underneath a sakura tree, staring at the sky with a dark expression on his face. Kiba. Kiba turned with a frown as Rias walked up to him. Why did you leave? Ravel wasn't finished explaining the plan. Her knight said nothing, causing her to grow concerned. Kiba, what's wrong? I'm sorry, Bucho, Kiba said. I know you mean well with what you're doing, but I can't do this. His hands clenched into fists. I can't work with members of the Catholic Church, especially ones wielding the Excaliburs. Can't. Or refuse to. Kiba said nothing. Damn it, Kiba, are you really going to be this stubborn? I know what happened to you. You have every right to hate holy swords, but do you really think anything will be solved by acting like this? Answer me, Kiba. Kiba sighed, then began walking off. Rias gritted her teeth as she rushed over and grabbed his arm. I didn't say you could leave, Kiba. You and I are going to have a long talk about this. No, we're not. Kiba ripped his arm out of her grasp. Rias was too shocked to do anything as he started walking away again. You've been very kind to me, Bucho, however, I will not work with people who wield holy swords. From this point on, I'm going it alone. Rias looked aghast. I don't understand. Kiba, what are you saying? Kiba stopped and turned his head, staring at her out of his peripheral. Rias was taken by back the blatant hatred that shone in his eyes, the underlying hint of fury and rage that lay within their depths. I'm saying that if you're going to work with holy sword users, then I can no longer be a part of your peerage. I suppose you can consider this my letter of resignation. Rias' eyes whitened as she watched Kiba leave. His words clenched her heart like icy fists. She wanted to run after him, but her body remained stuck in place, frozen from the shock and hurt coursing through her. All she could do was watch as the young man she rescued from certain death several years back walked out on her. Naruto couldn't see where he was being led. It might have had something to do with the blindfold covering his eyes, but it didn't change the fact that he couldn't see. His hands were also tied behind his back with some kind of chain that drained his devil powers. How cute. These people thought draining his admittedly weak devil powers would keep him from breaking out if he wanted to. The idiots. You're the only idiot that I can see here. From within his cage, Kurama flicked his 10 tails back and forth, watching everything that Naruto saw, which at the moment was nothing. It was like staring at a blank screen. Stupid blindfold. Seriously, Naruto, why are we even doing this? You can escape anytime you want to, so why put yourself in the hands of these people? You already know the answer to that, Kurama. We need to learn more about these people, and the best way to do that is to meet with their leader. I suppose. Don't worry. I've already got several escape plans in mind. Worst comes to worst, and we'll just cinch up and blow this place to smithereens. We still don't know what our combined powers could do, though. Will you even be able to control it? So long as I've got you as a partner, there's nothing we can't accomplish together. Still. Did you guys really have to blindfold me? He asked out loud. I mean, I can appreciate having to keep your super secret bad guy base a secret, but come on, can you people at least try to be a little more original? I feel like I've been suddenly transported into one of those really cheesy anime that my girlfriend makes me watch. While Naruto couldn't see anyone, he heard Biku laugh from somewhere behind him. I'm impressed that you can still crack jokes like that. You really are an interesting guy. I can see why she wants you. So your boss is a chick? Naruto asked, then paused. Is she cute? While Biku laughed some more, Arthur sighed. I don't know why you're acting so casually. We're holding you hostage, and you have no way to escape. Says you, Naruto fired back, not missing a beat. So, about this boss of yours. A boss is many things, Nia. Naruto's ears perked at the sound of Kuroka's voice. He'd already figured out that Biku and Arthur were behind him, and it sounded like the Black Neko show was leading the way in front. You'll find out exactly who she is upon meeting her. Did you pick that line up from an anime? Because that seriously reminded me of this show, this one anime where. Would you knock it off with the anime references already? Tekiki, relax Arthur. Let the man have his fun. It makes things more interesting. Gee, maybe you don't mind him having fun at your expense, but I do. You're such a stick in the mud. Cut it you too, Nia. Naruto wondered if these people knew that every second they spoke, he learned even more about them. Oddly enough, none of these people seemed insane or necessarily evil. Not even Kaneko's older sister. Biku sort of reminded Naruto of himself, except he was way more awesome than that monkey, and Arthur was a stuck-up jerk, but Sasuke had also been a jerk, so that didn't bother him too much. He couldn't really get a lock on Kuroka, but the fact that she seemed quite sane earned a few points in her favor. He still didn't like her, though, not after she left Kaneko to fend for herself. Naruto bumped into Kuroka when the woman stopped walking. Hey, why did we stop? Cow cow? Cow cow? You guys have cows here. Kakekiki, this kid is hilarious. Don't call me a kid, you overgrown monkey. My name is Uzumaki Naruto, and I'm the best damn devil ninja you'll ever meet. Devil ninja, huh? What an interesting title. I see you managed to capture the target that she has asked for, a new voice spoke up. It's a pity this person is a devil. We don't need any more of their kind around here. This place is already crawling with enough devils already. Naruto tilted his head at the arrogant voice. Then he turned to where his senses perceived Biku to be. Who's the douche? Kakekiki. More laughter erupted from the monkey yokai. Naruto also felt some killing intent fill the air. It came from somewhere in front of him. Probably from the douche. The person you call a douche is Cao Cao. He's part of the group we belong to, though he belongs in a different faction. Naruto nodded in a sagely manner. I see. I see. Cao Cao, huh? What an awful name. It's no wonder he sounds like a stick's been shoved up his ass. With a name like that, I'd be pretty angry, too. It's Cao Cao, not Cao Cao, the angry voice of the douche named Cao Cao said. Right. I gotcha. Cao Cao. Moo. Naruto felt the killing intent intensify. He wondered if that meant Cao Cao was glaring at him. His office here, Nia. Kuroka asked, probably in an attempt to stop a fight from breaking out. No, she left a little while ago to seek out another sacred gear user who caught her interest. Some half-breed named Volley. Wait, so you're telling me that your leader went out to find someone else, but sent you guys to get me? How insulting. I don't think I want to meet your leader anymore. While Biku laughed some more, the sound of Arthur facepalming reached Naruto's ears. It doesn't matter anymore. You're already in our possession. Escape is no longer an option for you. Says the man who thought he could control me with a stick. Do not insult Excalibur ruler's abilities. I don't know why it didn't work against you, and I will find out how you managed to resist its power. It is still one of the most powerful holy swords in the entire world. Even after being shattered into 7 pieces, it still holds great power. Aha. That's nice and all, but you know what they say. A stick is a stick is a stick. Arthur's killing intent soon joined Cao Cao's, while Biku continued laughing. He couldn't hear anything from Kuroka, but he imagined that she would be amused if nothing else. She seemed the type. So, that meant the two humans were the hotheads, or at least the ones more easily irritated. Good to know. Naruto wondered if he should push these people a little more to see where their breaking points lie. You seem to be enjoying yourself. I have no clue what you're talking about. I am simply making the best of a bad situation. It was your own innate curiosity that got us stuck in this situation, you know. You could have just as easily replaced yourself with a clone while they weren't looking, but decided to stick around for some reason. The clone might dispel, before I learn anything interesting. Better to deal with this myself than send in a clone, and have it pop, before I can gather any useful information. Point taken. And it's not like we can't bust out whenever the hell we want to. Our chakra has synchronized now, and none of these people feel strong enough to stop us. Although I do feel something near us that might cause some problems. Ah, you felt that too. I wonder what it is. A sacred gear, maybe. Maybe. I suppose we'll need to stick around for a while longer, if we want to learn more. Right? While Naruto spoke with Kurama, an argument ensued between the people around him. So what are we supposed to do with him, then? We can't leave this boy alone, Nia. He'll escape if we don't have anyone watching him. He might escape even if we do have someone watching him, Nia. We could always just kill him. I doubt Office really needs another devil in her ranks. You remember her orders. Office wanted this boy brought to her alive. Or do you want to be the one to tell her that you killed someone she wanted to meet because you didn't like them? Why don't we just put him up in one of the empty rooms, and have several of our more powerful warriors guard him around the clock in shifts? We could do that, but we'll need at least 3 people guarding him at any given time. He's already proven that he can fight 2 of us at the same time on equal footing. I don't want to waste any of my faction guarding a devil. Then don't. We can have people from the other factions help us if your people aren't up to the task. The 4 argued for a little while longer before coming to a decision. Naruto was then led to what he believed was a room. The one known as Biku shoved him in the back, causing him to stumble forward before catching himself. He straightened and turned to glare at the Monkey Man, even though he couldn't really glare, because his eyes were still covered. The hell was that for? Kekiki, these will be your accommodations for the duration of your stay here. I hope you try to cause some more trouble. I could use the entertainment. The door soon shut behind him, and Naruto heard one of the 4 people walk off. Judging by their unique signature and the feeling of that strange, yet dangerous power receding, he believed it was that Cao Cao character. He thought about trying to goad the 3 who brought him here some more, but decided not to in the end. Instead he brought a kunai out of the storage seal on his left sleeve, applied a small amount of wind chakra to it, then cut through his bonds. After that he pulled the blindfold off, and observed his new surroundings. What a boring looking room, he thought, noting how uniform it looked. This room didn't have a single decoration, no pictures, no windows, and the only pieces of furniture was a bed in the far corner. The white walls looked abnormally drab. I doubt these people really care about interior decorating. Kurama snorted in amusement. So what are you going to do now? Wait. Not like I can do much else. And maybe I'll play a few pranks while I'm at it. You're going to piss of your hosts. That's kinda the point. Just then, Naruto's stomach gurgled. He patted his belly, trying to soothe it. Ha, guess I'm hungry. Well, it has been a while since I've had anything good to eat. All those people gave me were rations, and those taste like shit. You've been spoiled by your mate's cooking. Probably, he agreed. Naruto sat down on the bed and took out a scroll that was sealed on his arm, thanking the high heavens that he had the foresight to seal stuff on his body, and not just in paper. Arthur, Biku and Kuroka had confiscated all of his weapons and sealing scrolls. An application of chakra and poof of smoke later revealed the contents of the scroll, a steaming bowl of miso ramen with complimentary chopsticks. Licking his lips with anticipation, Naruto broke the chopsticks apart and started eating. Damn, he loved ramen. Faye Pendragon didn't really care about the Koa's Brigadier's cause. If asked, she would gladly tell everyone that the only reason she even joined this group was because of her brother, Arthur Pendragon. They had been swayed to join with the promise of getting to battle against powerful holy sword users. Knowing of her brother's insatiable desire for combat against other swordsmen, and his somewhat snobbish personality, she had followed him, in order to keep him out of trouble, which was a lot harder than it looked. Especially when all they had her doing at the moment was standing guard. Standing beside her was Biku, the descendant of Sun Wukong, and another silent figure, one that towered over them both. Its form compassed of stone, it stood, a silent sentinel that appeared to be made from thousands of boulders both large and small. The very crude-looking golem was her latest magical creation. Its unstable body rattled every so often, and Faye knew it wouldn't do much in a prolonged fight, but since they were just guarding a single prisoner, it was okay. Besides, they needed all the help they could get. None of the other factions wanted the job, it seemed, as all had refused when asked. Thus, the task of guarding the one known as Uzumaki Naruto was up to them. Biku stretched his arms above his head. Man, this is so boring. I thought this Naruto guy would have at least made some noise by now. Why would he do that, Biku-sama? Faye asked curiously. She hadn't heard much about this Naruto person, other than that he was an annoying fly who had a bad habit of running his mouth off, according to her brother. Because he's an interesting guy who loves causing trouble, Biku answered, grinning. Lafay assumed he was remembering something their captive had done. He's a lot like me except neither is dashing, nor as skilled as I am and is always getting up to no good. Thinking on it, he actually reminds me of a sly old fox. Lafay had yet to actually meet Naruto. No one was allowed into or out of the chamber they were guarding, or so her brother had ordered. There was even a slot drilled into the door for when they had to feed him. She was actually kind of surprised Biku had even heeded Arthur's orders. He was never one to listen to Arthur, which was actually a cause for contention among them. Oh, I wonder if that's why my Arthur Nisama dislikes him so much. Most definitely, Biku agreed. Your brother's a real stick in the mud, no offense, so it's only natural that someone who knows how to have fun would get on his nerves. That's not a very nice thing to say about my Nisama. But it's true, isn't it? Heck, I'm surprised that even you can get along with your brother. You've got such a vibrant and outgoing personality that it's hard to imagine you two are even related. You think so? Lafay had never really thought about it before. Her brother was her brother, and she loved him very much. She wouldn't have followed him to join the Cows Brigade, abandoning her position at the Magicians Association known as Golden Dawn, if she didn't. I know so. What you guys talking about? Lafay turned to answer the voice that spoke up in her left ear. We're just talking about my brother and how he doesn't, eh? The descendant of Morgan Le Fay stared at the young man she'd never met before. Eyes as blue as the azure sky were set on the boyish face of a teen nearing full maturity. 6 whiskers on either cheek marred sun-kissed skin. They were actually kind of cute. His dark black pants with orange trim ruffled as he moved. The dark orange shirt adorning his frame hid broad shoulders and a chiseled chest. He was also tall, not as tall as Biku, but at least a head and shoulders taller than her. He was eating a bowl of ramen. What? How did you get out of this cell? Biku shouted, causing Le Fay to feel confusion. The young man with bright blonde hair blinked. I just walked out through the door. Biku gawked some more. That's not possible. We've had people guarding this door around the clock. There's no way you could have escaped without us knowing about it. Even if you could escape, I would have detected your chakra signature moving, but it hasn't moved from this room since we put you in there. The man shrugged and continued slurping up his ramen. I don't know what to tell. Maybe your ability to detect chakra signatures just sucks. Rather than get angry, Biku snorted. You really are an amusing guy, you know that. So you've told me. Numerous times, I might add. Biku-sama. Lafay gathered the attention of her partner and the blonde man, who she pointed at with her staff. Who is this? It wasn't Biku who answered. I'm glad you asked, little lady. Allow me to introduce myself. All the lights turned off, which Lafay found weird, because they didn't have any lights to turn off in the first place. The light in this hallway came from sunlight that filtered through the glass roof above their heads. And why was she suddenly hearing strange kabuki music in the background? From the east to the west, I am known far and wide as the greatest ninja to have ever exist, a man whose power is undeniable, and whose strength of will is unquestionable. I have gone by many names. Hero, Sage, the manliest man this side of Mansville. A spotlight appeared in the room, allowing only a small circle of light to appear before her, revealing the blonde man who stood in the center making a weird pose. In my time I have also been called the Great Gama Sennin of Mount Maiboku, the hero of Konohagakure, the slayer of evil, the level 100 master head petter, and the boyfriend of Ria's Gremory. However, you may call me Uzumaki Naruto-sama. She watched a man calling himself Uzumaki Naruto hop from one foot to the other. What a strange dance. Was this some kind of ancient ritual? And he called himself Naruto. Wasn't Naruto the person they were supposed to be guarding? Excuse me, Naruto-sama, Lafay said, getting Naruto to stop dancing. But are you, by chance, the person we're supposed to guard until Office-sama gets back? Naruto adopted a thinking pose, left hand on his chin, right hand underneath his left elbow. Yes, I believe that I am. Right? Lafay nodded to herself until the situation caught up to her, and she began gawking at him. What are you doing out of your room? I got bored, so I left. You left? Blink. Because you were bored. More blinking. But how? I just walked out the front door. You guys didn't see me. No, Biku said dryly, clearly not believing a word this man said. Lafay wasn't sure she believed him either. Surely they would have noticed this door opening, and someone as cheerful as him walking out of it. We didn't, and where did you get that ramen? At the mention of his ramen, Naruto slurped up some of the noodly goodness. Found it lying around. Can I have some? Hell no. Get your own ramen. Stingy. Lafay Pendragon watched as Naruto and Biku argued back and forth over, of all things, ramen. She studied the one they were supposed to watch carefully. It startled her to see how carefree he acted, like he wasn't even worried about how he'd been kidnapped by a group of unknown people. He just stood there, bantering with one of his kidnappers like being taken from everything you knew and loved was an everyday occurrence for him. What an odd man. What the hell happened to my hair? Just then, a scream erupted from somewhere in the base. She didn't know where, but it must have been either really close or really loud. This section of their base was located in a wing as far from the epicenter as you could get. It was basically an abandoned section, with only Naruto taking up residence there. Was that Arthur Nisama? Haha, yep. Why was he screaming like that? Let me guess, you played a prank on him, didn't you, boyo? Oh, so now you're calling me boyo. You can't keep changing my nickname like that, you know, and of course I played a prank on him. He needs to loosen up, and pranks are a great way to let loose. Kekiki. I should have known you would do something like this. You've been far too quiet since we captured you. Speaking of me being captured, you mentioned that the reason is because your leader wants to speak with me. Why hasn't this office character come back yet? Shouldn't she have met with this folly guy by now? Biku shrugged. Who can say? I'm sure she's got her reasons. Just then, more shouting emerged from the hallway. Luffy thought it was getting closer. Uzumaki Naruto, you shall pay for what you've done to my hair. Oh? Sounds like someone's angry. Naruto seemed intent on avoiding her brother, because he quickly finished off his ramen, then wandered back over to the door that she and Biku were guarding. It really made her wonder if they should even guard this door, since Naruto could apparently escape without them even knowing it. The door opened, and Naruto turned to Biku. If Arthur asks, I never left this room. Biku gave the spiky-headed man an amused look. Of course. Naruto nodded, then turned to Luffy, who suddenly realized that this was the first time she'd actually met their captive. Deciding that he couldn't be all bad, if he and Biku were talking like old friends, she offered the boy a bright smile and a wave. Hello, Naruto-sama. It's very nice to meet you. Nice to meet you too, Naruto sounded amused. He turned to Biku and pointed at her. I like this girl. She's polite, unlike you and the stick wielder. Kekiki, I bet you just like her because she's cute. There's that too. Luffy didn't really know what to say about that, so she didn't say anything. She did become startled, however, when Naruto grabbed her by the hand and began dragging her into his room. Naruto-sama, what are you doing? Naruto turned and gave her a very serious look. If I'm going to be cooped in this room, then I'm going to need someone to talk to. Between you, the monkey, and the stone man over there, I would much rather talk to you. That's not a problem, is it? Luffy honestly considered the question. Technically speaking, she didn't think they were supposed to be getting chummy with Naruto. Then again, she wasn't even sure why they were sent to capture him in the first place. However, she assumed Office wanted this man to join her cause, and if that was indeed the case, then it might be a good idea if she and the others got to know him. He already knew Biku and Kuroka and her brother, but he didn't know who she was. Therefore, wouldn't it make sense if they talked and got to know each other a little better? Sure, she replied cheerfully. Luffy was sure that Office wouldn't mind. Office didn't seem to care what they did with their free time. How else could she explain the chaotic state the Chaos Brigade was in with its constant infighting between factions? Great, came the equally cheerful reply of Naruto. Thus, the two blondes walked into Naruto's room, the door closing behind them. What up, boss man? Another Naruto said from where he lay on the bed. Finished your errands? Yep, Naruto replied to the other Naruto, while a face stood there blinking. All finished. Thanks for playing chakra sonar for me. No prob, the Naruto on the bed said before popping in a literal burst of smoke. Luffy turned to Naruto. Who was that? My clone. You can create clones. Yep, Naruto grinned. I can do a lot of other things too. Maybe someday you'll get to see what I can do. Several seconds later, Arthur Pendragon stormed down the hall like a man possessed. Luffy heard him stop at the door and begin screaming at Biku. Let me in that room. Sorry, no can do, came the reply. You know we're not supposed to let him out on your orders, I might add. By the way, nice hair. Shut up. Don't talk about my hair. Don't even look at my hair. And I'm repealing that order, so let me in that room right now. That's why do you want to go into this room anyway? Got a crush. Shut up. Shut up, shut up, shut up. Man, when did you become its tsundere? Is it tsundere? Kekiki. You know all this shouting and yelling isn't helping your case. Brah. The sound of Arthur's screaming echoed through the room. Luffy looked at Naruto as the sound of Arthur's angry stomps receded. He was sitting on the ground, leaning against the bed, while she claimed the bed for herself, her legs crossed Indian style on the mattress. The young devil's bright blue eyes were light with mischief, and he had shoved his fist into his mouth to keep from laughing. What did you do to him? She asked curiously. Naruto looked up at her with the bright, shining eyes of a child who'd managed to escape punishment after successfully stealing a cookie from the cookie jar. I dyed his hair bright pink, and gave him cornrows. Luffy stared at the young man for several seconds, then began giggling. And thus, a new friendship was born. Rhea sat on the couch, waiting. Her eyes surveyed the room. It didn't look like much. The walls were bare of life. No tokens, no pictures, no mementos from the past. The cream-colored floor defined much of the room's surface, save where it changed to tiles several meters to her left, signifying the room turning into a kitchen. A staircase on the other side led to the loft. Kiba's studio apartment hadn't changed since she last saw it. It remained much the same as it always had. Neat, clean, tidy, impersonal. Perhaps this was because he rarely ever spent time in this place. She had bought this for him so that he would have a place to return to and rest after school and finishing contracts, but that's all this place seemed to be. It wasn't home. The sound of the door opening and closing alerted her to someone entering. Kiba stood in the doorway, taking off his shoes. He hadn't noticed her yet. I was wondering when you would show up. Kiba's head snapped up. His eyes widened when he saw her. He turned around and tried to flee. Rhea snapped her fingers. All around them several magic circles with the Gremory clan crest flared into the existence. They were everywhere. The walls, the floor, the ceiling and the door. This spell is a magical barrier that I devise with the help of Naruto. The magic circles are placed in an overlapping pattern both inside and outside of this space to create a single, much larger seal that is 20 times more powerful than what it would be if I simply created a bunch of smaller seals. Rhea smiled at the memory. Her boyfriend acted like an idiot, but he had some incredible ideas locked away inside of that goofy head of his. Low and mid-class devils can't break it. Kiba hadn't turned around. His shoulders were unnaturally stiff. Look, Riaz, I understand that you might not like what I'm trying to do. You're damn right I don't like what you're trying to do. Ria's words were calm, yet contained a hint of her anger. You think that going off on your own and leaving us, your family, to worry for your safety is the right thing to do? Or do you just not care what we think at all? Kiba winced. I know what you're going through, Kiba. You don't know what I'm going through, came the soft reply. How could you, when you've never experienced what I have? You couldn't possibly understand. Then make me understand. Riaz stood from her seat, shouting. You stand here talking about how I don't know anything, as if I'm not aware of what happened to you, as if I don't know what the church did. I am well aware of what they did. I was the one who saved you, in case you forgot. So don't just stand there, telling me that I don't understand. If there is something I'm not getting here, then tell me. Silence. Her words were met with silence. Kiba said nothing for the longest time, and she just stood there, waiting. She would wait for as long as necessary. Kiba couldn't escape from this room without killing her, and she was confident that he would not do such a thing. He wasn't lost to her yet. You know of my history, Bucho. I was an orphan who was picked up by the church. They offered me a place to stay, food, a warm bed, a roof over my head and friends to share it with. I thought it was almost too good to be true. A mirthless chuckle. Turns out I was right. Riaz didn't say anything. While she knew what happened, it was not because of anything Kiba said. Her brother had found out what was happening and decided not to interfere, as it did not involve devils. Being the curious girl that she was, Riaz had gone to where the experiment known as the Holy Sword Project had taken place, and it was there, in a snow-covered forest, that she found her knight. It didn't happen right away, the disappearances. We were first given a place to call home, were fed warm food, given beds, and had a roof over our head. It was everything the church said it would be, and we were all so very happy. And then my friends began disappearing. Kiba shuddered, his body suffused with barely suppressed emotions. One by one my friends vanished into thin air. The priests told us that we couldn't see our friends because they had been selected to help them bring about God's work. That they were doing a great service to the church and would surely be rewarded for their efforts. Even though we were sad that our friends weren't able to see us anymore, we were happy because we thought that our friends were helping God. Kiba's bitter chuckle almost brought Riaz to tears. We never even realized what was truly happening until much later. Kiba paused. Riaz used this moment to center herself. What her knight was telling her now was something that he had never shared with anyone. This was the heart of his hatred. They eventually stopped being so secretive about what was happening, and they stopped pretending that our friends had been sent off to some faraway place. Some of my friends would be taken somewhere else, then brought back as sobbing wrecks, their bodies racked with unimaginable pain. However, even then we did not hate the church. We believed with all our hearts that we were doing God's work. We had faith, the belief that if we could just hold on a little longer, just endure a little more, then we would eventually be rewarded. But you weren't, the first words Riaz had spoken since Kiba began his story. It wasn't a question. No, we weren't. I can only assume that, at some point, they must have gotten whatever they wanted, or maybe they just deemed everyone there as failures and planned on starting from scratch. I don't really know. All I remember are the choke screams of my friends as gas was leaked into our bedrooms one night. Half of us never even got a chance to run. Most inhaled too many fumes and died before we even knew something was wrong. There were the lucky ones, those few that died quickly. The rest of us weren't so lucky. Ria's shoulders began to shake. She knew that crying would not be the right thing to do. Kiba did not want her pity, so she would not give it to him, even if it meant sucking up her own feelings of sorrow. I remember those of us who managed to escape were gunned down from behind. A few of the braver ones turned and ran back to protect the younger ones. It didn't matter though. All of us were gunned down one by one, until only I was left. Riaz held a hand to her mouth, and stifled her sob. You want to know what the worst part about all this is? The worst part about all of this isn't just knowing that my friends died, but that their deaths were in vain. That they died for nothing. The Holy Sword Project, which tried turning regular humans into potential Holy Sword users that could wield Excalibur, was a failure, and all they had to show for it was a pile of corpses. Perhaps, if the project had been successful, if my friends' deaths had achieved a greater purpose, maybe then things would have been different, maybe I wouldn't be this bitter. But it wasn't, and now I am haunted by my friends' deaths, of the people I loved who died in vain, of how I didn't have the power to protect them. Kiba raised his hands and looked down at them, clenching and unclenching. Ryuz could imagine the mirthless smile on his face. Naruto would probably hate me. He was always going on about how revenge and hatred solves nothing. No, he wouldn't, Ryuz said with absolute certainty. Naruto isn't capable of hating a friend. He's barely even capable of hating an enemy. He wouldn't approve of the hatred you feel, but he would at least understand it. And what about you? Do you think it's wrong for me to feel this hatred? To want revenge? Of course not, Ryuz shook her head. I am a devil. I know a lot about negative emotions, and I know how strong those emotions can be in a human. Feeling hatred towards someone who has wronged you is a natural feeling. Everybody who has ever lived has felt hatred, even Naruto. Love and hate, happiness and sadness, completion and loss. One cannot feel one emotion without feeling the other. They go hand in hand with each other. Yes, Kuba said faintly, I suppose they do. A pause. After seeing how you and Naruto act around each other, it is easy to forget how worldly you are. Worldly, Ryuz tested the word. I guess that fits, in a way. As a pureblood devil, I am an embodiment of desire. The sins that humanity calls deadly are what drives our kind forward. Lust, gluttony, greed, sloth, envy, pride, wrath. We embody these traits fully. However, the mark of a good devil is to never let these traits control you. We are always in control of our emotions, and never let our emotions control us. And that is why I am worried about you. Kiba stiffened. Ryuz walked forward with slow, delicate steps. Ever since the Holy Sword users arrived, I have watched you descend into darkness. I've seen your hatred manifesting in ways that make me worry for you. I see you lash out at people, isolate yourself from your friends, and I worry that, if you keep letting these emotions control you, then you will slip farther and farther away from me and the others. And I do not want that. Ryuz reached Kiba, stopping behind him. She placed her hands on his shoulders, which caused Kiba to stiffen. Ignoring his response, she slowly turned him around until they were facing each other. Then she hugged him. It was almost amusing to see the startled look etched on his face right before she grabbed his head and pulled it to her chest. She wrapped her arms around him, cradling his head on her bosom, her hands gently stroking his hair. You're my knight, Kiba, a member of my peerage and a part of my family. I love you very much and I refuse to let you go. Even if you try pushing me away, I will always be there for you. Something wet stained Ryu's shirt. Tears, she realized. Kiba's tears. If it is revenge that you seek, then I, as your king, shall do everything in my power to make sure that you can have your revenge. The tears increased, soaking into her shirt and expanding outward from her chest. The only thing that I will ever ask of you is this. Do not abandon us for the sake of revenge. Allow us to walk alongside you. Rely on us, on me, and promise to never leave my peerage again. I promise, Kiba's sobbing voice choked out. I promise, I'll never leave you. I'm sorry. It's okay. Everything is alright now. Just let it all out, Ryuz murmured, stroking Kiba's head with the tenderness of a mother comforting her child. Naruto ate lunch with Luffy, Pendragon and Biku. They no longer confined him to his room, probably because he kept sneaking out. It didn't matter either way. All that Naruto cared about was eating lunch with his two friends. He considered Luffy a friend, but he wasn't sure about Biku. Pranking rival would be more accurate. He spent a lot of time with these two, more than he did the other two, Arthur and Kuroka. The Holy Sword user didn't like him, and he didn't like Kuroka. It had nothing to do with her personality. Naruto was sure that, had their circumstances been different, they would have gotten along famously. He was just being stubborn. Kuroka left Kaneko to fend for herself, and Naruto loved the younger Neko show. Getting along with Kuroka, while Kaneko hadn't forgiven her sister, felt too much like betrayal to him. No way. Luffy looked at him in shock, her face red and breathless from giggling. Biku couldn't even say that much. He was too busy laughing. Did you really? I shit you not, Naruto grinned. When I was 12 years old, I painted the monument that possessed the faces of all my village leaders in broad daylight, wearing nothing but a bright orange jumpsuit. Get out of here. I don't believe you. I believe him, Biku nodded, still cackling like a monkey, Naruto suppose. Did monkeys cackle? Son Goku sure hadn't. His belly laugh had been rumbling. That sounds exactly like something he would do. Their mirth halted, if only for a moment, as a flushed red Arthur sat down next to them. Not a word, the young man spat. A single second of silence ensued. Then Biku, Luffy and Naruto began laughing once more with renewed ferocity. Arthur Pendragon, descendant of Morgan Luffy and the man whose namesake he was born from, looked like he'd been dipped in rainbow-colored tie-dye. His face was a facet of numerous psychedelic colors. It would not be inaccurate to say that he looked like an American hippie from the 70s who took the idea of tie-dyeing stuff just a little too far, or maybe a man who ate too many Skittles and was finally paying the price. Oh, Kami. Naruto exploded. You look absolutely ridiculous. Arthur's face turned red. At least Naruto thought it had turned red. It was hard to tell, since he looked like a carny gone wrong. Shut up. He spat. This is all your fault. You and your damn pranks. Naruto just grinned. Hate to break it to you, but this time it wasn't me. Arthur, in his embarrassment-induced rage, didn't even seem to catch the this time part of Naruto's words. Wasn't you? But if it wasn't you, then who? His eyes widened, right before they began smoldering. Biku. Biku was also grinning. Kekiki. What's the problem? I think you look good like that. You could probably even start a new trend. We'll call it psychedelic sacred gear. Being the apparent nicest of the trio, Lafay Pendragon decided to soothe her brother's anger. Please stop having fun at Arthur Nisama's expense like this, Biku-sama, Naruto-sama. I don't know, what do you think? Biku asked Naruto, who looked genuinely thoughtful. Well, normally I would say not a chance in hell. Lafay pouted, but since Fei-chan is the one asking, I guess I can stop. We need to find a new target anyway. Pranking Arthur is just too easy. Arthur grumbled before making the apparent decision to ignore them. A figure soon appeared before them. Multiple figures. Naruto sensed their presence before they reached them, but ignored the group until their shadows hovered over him. Can we help you? Naruto asked with a bored expression. I had not realized you were allowed to leave your cell, was the response. Are we letting prisoners out now? How can you deal with this devil anyway? Biku, I could understand. He's not human. But you, Lafay. Arthur. Leaving my faction wasn't enough. Why have you decided to befriend this devil? He's not my friend, stupid git, Arthur mumbled and was subsequently forced to suck in a breath when Lafay elbowed him. Be nice, Nisama. Sorry. You're not sorry at all. Naruto looked up at Cao, surrounded by 3 members of his faction. His vision trailed to a blonde woman, beautiful, with an even more beautiful smirk that reminded him of a pit of vipers. A large man that towered over everyone else, heavily muscled, and with his arms crossed over his chest. His expression spoke of arrogance and disdain. Another man with silver hair stared, not at him but at Arthur, glaring daggers into the swordsman who did the same thing. Rivals, perhaps. Is there a reason you're bothering us? Naruto asked mildly, honestly curious. The so-called hero faction of the Chaos Brigade, as he learned they called themselves from Lafay, did not appear to like him very much, for reasons that he couldn't understand. I was not talking to you. What a rude remark. This Cao wasn't earning any points with him. I see. In that case, why are you bothering my friends? Don't you have better things to do, like, you know, getting the base some milk or something? Cao twitched, but kept his cool. Damn. It seemed the idiot was learning. I would not expect a devil like you to understand. Then again, I am also surprised that you would stick up for devils. Ah, here it goes again. Being a devil who has been resurrected under the evil peace system, don't you feel angry at those devils for what they have done to you? For forcing you to serve them, and all because they sought the power you contained for themselves. Not really, Naruto shrugged. Why should I? It's not like I was doing anything worthwhile with my life. I simply drifted along until they came and helped me put the pieces of what I had once been back together. If anything, I consider myself grateful for getting a second chance. Then you are truly lost, Cao shook his head. Says the man who's got his head shoved so far up his own ass I doubt he'd know which way's out. You better watch your mouth, Blondie, the heavily muscled man, who Naruto knew as Heracles, growled at him. I'm not sure how you expect me to do that, unless you want me looking at a mirror all day. But, if you want me looking at the mouth of a hot blonde, then I could always just look at Fei-chan's pretty little mouth. She's hot. Well, Lafay flushed at the blunt statement, Arthur growled. Of course, I suppose I could also look at Jean's mouth, but it looks like it might start spitting poison, so I'd rather not. Kekiki, you've got such a way with words, Biku chuckled. The one known as Jean glared at him. Like I would want to have a devil looking at any part of me. Naruto's smirk was devilish. Don't worry, we devils have standards, and while you're undeniable hot, your personality leaves much to be desired. I can't see anything attractive about you when all I see is this ugly bitch who froths at the mouth when someone steals her panties. That was you? Of course that was me. Naruto ignored the gaping jaws being sent his way and Jean's accusing finger. Who else would steal a person's panties and do some interior decorating with them? Applause. Except for maybe Biku. Kekiki. Shut up, you damn monkey. Jean snapped at Biku, then turned her ire back on Naruto. You fucking perv. I should kill you where you stand. Bring it, bitch, Naruto grinned at the woman, smacking his left fist into his right palm. I'll kick your ass so hard my foot will smack your womb. Jean's face turned puce with anger. You. Cao raised a hand to silence Jean. Naruto had to admit, he might not like this arrogant son of a bitch, but the man had charisma. It bothers me that you refuse to see the inherent wrongness of the evil peace system. Cao Cao shook his head sadly. As someone who was resurrected, while on the verge of death, surely you of all people could understand why humanity should be wary of devil kind. Don't you feel even the least bit annoyed by how your humanity was forcefully taken from you, without you even being given a chance to deny them? They sacrificed your ability to remain human, without your consent, and all for the selfishness of a she-devil, who has no trouble enslaving you to her will. Naruto frowned. You say that like devils are the only ones capable of committing evil deeds, when that couldn't be farther from the truth. Humans are more than capable of committing great sins upon other humans. Devils enslaving humans against their will. Humans are more than happy to enslave each other on their own. I've seen it. Humans hurt people for their gain. They kill out of greed, out of hate, out of jealousy. If anything, the creatures that humanity should be most wary of aren't the inhuman entities that exist, but their own species, who have proven time and time again that they have no trouble enslaving their fellow humans. Naruto stared Cao Cao down, unbothered by the irritation his words caused the other man. And I would be careful when making comments about my girlfriend. Insult Ria's grammar again and you'll become the latest victim of the 1000 years of death. Uzumaki style. Arthur leaned over to his sister and put a hand to his mouth. What's this 1000 years of death that he speaks of? Lafay shrugged. Beats me. Cao Cao's eyes lingered on Naruto a bit longer, then he scoffed. It seems that nothing I say will change your mind. And here I was thinking you might be able to understand, seeing how you were once human, but I guess not. I almost forgot how bewitched you were with that Gremory she-devil. How repulsive. Okay, now that made Naruto angry. Repulsive is seeing your ugly mug every day. Now why don't you just move on back the way you came? I'd like to continue eating lunch with my friends here, and you're ruining the mood. Heracles took a step forward, snarling and spitting. I don't like the way you're talking. Keep it up, and I may have to rearrange your face. Oh? Naruto stood up from his seat. Blood began pumping through his veins. He could hear a deep hum in the confines of his mind. It wasn't the literally hum, but the metaphorical kind that came when he called upon his chakra. If you think you can take me on, then be my guest. I'd love to show you what happens when you screw with the great Uzumaki Naruto-sama. The tension thickened. Heracles glared at Naruto, who returned the look with a fierce grin. Several people around them held their breaths. No one spoke. All of them watched and waited to see who would make the first move. And that's when it happened. That's when Naruto felt it, the powerful presence that appeared out of nowhere. Kurama. I feel it. Whoever this person is, their power is nearly on par with my own. This person must be their leader. I suspect so. Be careful, Naruto. Well, I have confidence that we can beat whoever this person is together. I'm not sure if we can deal with them and all of these people, humans, yokai, devils, at the same time. There's a lot of power in this place, and a prolonged battle with whoever this person is, whatever they are, may end badly for us. I'll keep that in mind. It didn't take long for Naruto to discover the source of this power. She stood only a few meters away, near the entrance to the mess hall. She was short. Really short. Her hair appeared darker than night, twilight tresses that trailed down to her hips, and with bangs, framed a pair of gray eyes. He could just barely make out pointed ears hidden beneath her hair. Standing next to her was a handsome man with silver hair and an arrogant, battle-hungry smirk. From across the distance, the girl's eyes locked with Naruto's. She regarded him inquisitively, her head tilting. In return, Naruto stared back, his expression giving nothing away. His right hand did twitch, however. You're the one whose power I felt not too long ago, she said. He noted that her voice sounded cute even if it was completely lacking of emotions. The resurrected devil known as Uzumaki Naruto, who played in a recent raiding game and summoned that incredible power to destroy the one known as Riser Phoenix. I am glad that you have agreed to meet with me. I have a proposal for you. Naruto didn't say anything at first. He simply stood there, regarding the girl in a manner that made some of the people around him very, very uncomfortable. Finally, you're adorable. Can I pet you? Eh? Ryu's allowed her body to soak in the hot water. She had just come back from speaking with Kiba. Her heart felt lighter. It was good to see that her knight, for all the hatred and vengeful desires in his heart, had not completely lost himself to darkness. While devils were the embodiment of sin, that didn't mean they were evil. Only the devils who let their sinful desires control them became evil. That's what her brother once told her. Sitting beside her was Zenobia and Irina. The two churchgoers seemed to love bathing in the hot spring. This was probably because of their Spartan way of living. Ashia once said that the people of the Catholic Church lived in humility. Ryuz didn't get it, but assumed her devil nature meant she couldn't understand the point of not living in luxury. So what was up with that knight of yours? It was interesting to see the changes made in the two holy sword users. While Zenobia remained tight-lipped around her peerage, Irina, who, quite oddly enough, struck her as the more faithful of the two, seemed much more comfortable now, as shown by her asking that question. Ryuz pondered whether to tell her or not, but decided that revealing a small bit of her knight's past wouldn't hurt, and may at least help ease any bitterness the two felt toward his rude behavior. Kiba was a part of the Holy Sword Project. They both wince, causing her to smile mirthlessly, and I see you two know what that means. We've heard about the Holy Sword Project, Zenobia allowed with slight scowl. It's one of the largest blights on the church. However, we didn't know what the director, one Valper Galilei, was doing until well after he'd already murdered all of the children he planned on experimenting on. We assumed he realized we were coming for him, and was trying to get rid of the evidence. I see. I'm sorry I asked. Verena sounded subdued. Odd for such a perky girl, but then, this wasn't a very happy subject. It's fine. Kiba never goes around talking about his past, but it's not like he really tries hiding it either. I had not realized there was a survivor of the Holy Sword Project, Zenobia muttered. It would explain his hatred of the Excaliburs. So you noticed that, did you? Zenobia gave Riaz a dry look. Kind of hurt not to. Speaking of the Holy Swords, I wanted to talk to you about our plans. You mentioned that you wanted to retrieve them, but were willing to destroy them, if it meant keeping them out of enemy hands. Irina and Zenobia narrowed their eyes. Where are you going with this? I want you to let Kiba destroy one of the Excaliburs, Riaz stated bluntly. The two exorcists' eyes whitened. You can't be serious. Irina looked shocked. You're asking us to let a devil destroy one of the Excaliburs. Do you know how angry the higher-ups would be if they found out? So don't let them find out, Riaz shrugged. Tell them that you managed to capture 2 of the 3 Excaliburs, but the last one was destroyed during the fight. But that would be lying. Indeed it would. You can't seriously expect us to lie to the church like that. I could always kick you out of my territory. Irina sputtered. But we already agreed to your conditions. So? Riaz observed the two. It seemed her initial assumptions were correct. Irina was bubbly and amiable, but also fanatically religious. Zenobia held a strong belief of God, but not to the point where she wouldn't consider a proposal if she thought it would make sense. What an odd pair. I don't mind. Irina whirled on Zenobia. How could you say that, Zenobia? You're talking about letting a devil destroy one of the Excaliburs. I thought you of all people would be against that. I don't necessarily like the idea, Zenobia admitted with a frown, but I also don't mind allowing this if it will help us accomplish our goals. And besides, if Yudo really was part of the Holy Sword Project, then we, as members of the church, owe him an apology for letting Valper Galilei get away with the crimes he committed. Irina worried her lip for a moment, but eventually conceded. Yeah, you have a point there, she looked at Riaz. I guess we could let your knight destroy one of the Excaliburs. Thank you, Riaz smiled graciously. Irina crossed her arms and pouted. But don't think this means I'm not still mad at you. Trying to blackmail us, by kicking us out of your territory, because we wouldn't let you do something isn't nice. Riaz's smile was very Naruto-esque. I'm sorry. You don't sound very sorry. Naruto sat in a grand room, on a throne-like chair. The room was empty save him, and his current companion. The large marble columns felt strangely lonely, even as they stood with their brethren, silent monoliths to a time long since gone. He found it odd that such a place existed here, especially because he knew that here was actually a separate dimension created by Office, which explained why no one had discovered them after he was kidnapped. His companion of the hour, Office, was sitting on his lap. She told him that she wanted to speak to him, and he had agreed, provided she let him pet her. Most people would have probably balked at the request. Office had merely raised an eyebrow before agreeing. Biku had seemed awfully amused, even as most of the others sans la fée who looked horrified for some reason, and the new guy, Volley, who had laughed in amusement at the request, seemed disgusted that he would ask her such thing. That was good. Naruto needed to keep these people off guard. He didn't want any of them thinking he was anything more than a disgusting prankster with a loli fetish, even though Naruto was beginning to wonder if he might actually have a loli fetish himself. He wouldn't deny that he loved large breasts. Riaz's breasts were some of the most beautiful he had ever seen, and Naruto absolutely loved motorboating them and using them as pillows. And yet, he also loved cute things, especially cute girls. He didn't know why. Weird. I have a proposal for you, those were the first words Office had spoken. He didn't know how long they had been sitting there, but it must have been a while. He wondered if maybe his head petting made her forget why she had asked for him. He wouldn't be surprised. Kaneko often said he was an awesome head petter. I'm listening, Naruto said, his hand straying past her hair to find those adorably pointed ears. They reminded him of elf ears, except elves weren't so short. He thought about saying she was dwarf size, but she was far too damn cute for him to think of her in the same capacity as dwarves. Office didn't speak for a second, and when she leaned her head into his skilled hands, Naruto grinned. It looked like head petting worked on lawless of all types, regardless of whether they possessed enough power to destroy the world several times over. Oddly enough, even head petting did not get Office to change her voice from its bland overtones. It didn't even make her facial muscles twitch. Naruto felt the stirrings of a challenge in the air. I have been gathering strong people from every race, humans, yokai, devils and dragons, in order to accomplish my goal of kicking Great Red out of my home. Naruto found himself intrigued. Who's Great Red? Great Red is the most powerful being alive, a dragon whose power even exceeds my own. He goes by many titles. Apocalypse Dragon. The true dragon. The true red dragon god emperor. The dragon of dragons. He has been a thorn in my side for many years. He currently resides within the dimensional gap. The dimensional gap. Now just why did that sound so familiar? Naruto could have sworn he'd heard someone say something about that gap thingy before. After thinking about it for a second, he shrugged. If he didn't remember it, then it probably wasn't important. The dimensional gap is my home. It has been for as long as I have existed. However, a while ago, Great Red barged into my home and kicked me out. For the first time since seeing her, Naruto saw an inflection of emotion within her eyes. He didn't know if he could call it sadness. It seemed nothing like sadness, or rage, or anger, or even irritation. But still, even though he couldn't place the emotion in her eyes, he still felt a tug on his heartstrings at seeing something in her eyes. Ugh, maybe I really am becoming a lollican. This girl was just too adorable. He wanted to hug her, and never let go. A part of him was even tempted to travel to that gap place right now, and kick this Great Red's ass for kicking such a cute little thing out of her own home. That was an incredibly rude thing to do. So, just for clarification, are you asking me to help you kill this Great Red? Because if so, then I'm gonna tell you right now that I won't partake in murder. I'm not above kicking the ass of sanctimonious jerkwods who deserve it, but I try not to kill unless it becomes truly necessary. I don't care if he's killed or not, Office informed him in her bored, emotionless voice. I just want him gone. I don't want him in my home anymore. I wish to return to the solitude of the dimensional gap, and not have him annoying me with his antics. Naruto contemplated her words. On the one hand, so long as she didn't want him to kill someone for her, he wouldn't mind helping her out. She seemed nice enough, though he wished she would be a little more emotional. Maybe he could convince her to call him Winnie-chan. Haha, Winnie-chan, no. Focus, Naruto. Focus. Bringing himself back to his previous thoughts, he couldn't help but feel a bit sad, he guessed. He didn't know much about this dimensional gap, but her entire mentioning of solitude made him think that the place she spoke of was an empty one, a place where nothing but she existed. The thought depressed him. Did she really want to be alone? Why? Why would anyone want to be alone? He didn't understand. And that's when it hit him. An idea. A brilliant, wonderful idea. Yes, yes. His idea was genius, as expected from a man of his stature. All of his ideas were rather impressive, but this one definitely took the cake. Naruto looked down at the little girl on his lap. She stared back at him with emotionless eyes. I don't mind helping you kick this Great Red guy out of your home, however, I do have several conditions that my help comes with. You can agree to these conditions, or you can kiss my help goodbye. I could always just force you to help. No you can't, came the retort. If you know of the power I possess, then you know that I have enough to rival even you. A battle between us would either end in a stalemate or become a battle of attrition, and I can guarantee that in a battle like that, I would come out on top. What Naruto didn't mention was that he would only win if Office didn't bring the Chaos Brigade into the battle. He didn't know if he could fend off both Office and them at the same time. Even so, he felt that, should it become necessary, he could probably retreat and live to fight another day. Hey, Kurama. I already know what you're going to ask. To answer your question, yes, I can break through this dimension and get us back to the one that your friends are in. A fight between you and Office won't even be necessary. If she shows any signs of hostility, I'll just break through the barrier and we can escape. Got it. Thanks. Anytime. While Naruto held a conversation with his inner Fuzzy, Office continued staring at him like he was a puzzle to be solved. He didn't even notice her curious gaze until he and Kurama stopped speaking. Something up, he asked. Why did you stop petting my head? Did I? My bad. With a sheepish grin, Naruto once again resumed petting the girl's head. Had petting, the solution to all of Naruto's lowly problems. He did have to marvel at this girl's hair, though. He wondered how she kept it so soft and shiny. It was even softer than Ria's hair, and he knew because her hair was the first part of Ria's that he became attracted to. He would even go so far as to say it was love at first hair. So, then, are you willing to agree with my conditions? Office deliberated for a moment. Yes, she nodded her head at last, displacing Naruto's hand before it resumed its petting. I can agree to your conditions. She turned her head to look at him. What are they? In answer to her question, Naruto just smiled. It didn't take long for them to reach their intended destination. The large structure appeared European in nature, from the Gothic era, if Ria's wasn't mistaken. Large spires shooting from the top like stakes set to spear the heavens, were adorned with stained glass windows, each depicting a scene from the Bible. She supposed this place had once been pleasing to the eye. Indeed, she could envision people coming and going to this place during grander times, praying to God and joining in worship. Such was not the case anymore. Much the building lay in a state of neglect. Her enhanced devil vision could make out rust stains and scratch marks and graffiti that had been painted along the walls. This place looks abandoned, Issei commented. That's because it is abandoned. In response to the looks she received, Irina could only shrug, or it should be. This was once a place of worship that had many followers of Catholicism coming here for sermons. I used to come here with my parents. That's right, Issei smacked the palm of his left hand into the palm of his right. Isn't your old man a priest? I think I remember him inviting me to church once. That's right, Irina nodded, seemingly pleased that he remembered. My father held sermons here. We would always come to church on Thursdays and Sundays to hold services. Dad wanted to invite you, and then he found out about your fascination with breasts and decided to stop asking. Ugh. Yufufufu, Akeno held a hand to her lips. Issei-kun does have quite the fascination with breasts. He certainly loves mine quite a bit. Issei began blushing. For some reason I'm not really sure I feel comfortable talking about this in public. Now don't be like that, Akeno smiled a devil's smile. You're always going on about how you're going to become a harem king, but you blush whenever I mention how you enjoy my breasts. That sort of thinking seems awfully backwards. Listen, Akeno, this and that are two different things. Issei clenched his hands into unholy fists that trembled with determination and lust, but mostly determination. I would gladly proclaim to the world my intentions of becoming the harem king. It is a goal that all men should aspire to, for there is no greater worth of a man than the number of beautiful women he can call to his side. Oh boy. Rios resisted the urge to palm her face. Irina and Zenobia looked appalled. Here we go again. There is nothing wrong with talking about one's dream. Issei seemed heedless of the disgusted stares the churchgoers were giving him. I will never be ashamed of proclaiming my dream of having my very own harem to the world. Because someday, if I say it enough times, then maybe it will come true. The perv's lost his mind, Kaneko deadpanned. Disgusting, Ravel agreed. I am terribly sorry about my friend's behavior towards women. Even Kiba was apologizing to the exorcists. I don't know where he got his fascination with having a harem, or breasts, or butts, but I am sorry if he has offended you in any way. Oh, shut up. You guys just can't understand what it means to be a harem king. The boobs. The butts. I plan on seeing them all. I'll have one of every body type in my harem. And then we'll have jiggly times. And there he goes. Akeno giggled as Issei became a drooling mess. It seems we've lost him. I think he's gotten off track of his original topic, Ravel added. As expected of the perv, Kaneko said, nodding. His brain is filled with nothing but lecherous activities. Issei shook himself from his stupor. Anyway, the point that I was trying to make is that, while I have no problem talking about my goals, my private life should be kept separate. I would never talk about what I do with the women in my harem, because it's special and something that should be kept between us. That's why I won't talk about what we do at home. That's so sweet. Ashia wiped away a few stray tears, clearly taken in with Issei's words. Zenobia and Irina looked at the girl like she'd sprouted a second head. Yeah, Kiba just looked weirded out by the whole thing. Maybe if he wasn't talking about being a harem king, his sweetness would have a bit more impact. Issei's about as sweet as Dango that's been left in a sumo wrestler's gym locker for 6 months, Kaneko added. Could we just get a move on? Rhea sounded desperate, please. I suppose we should, Zenobia said. The sooner we do this, the better. Are you sure it's safe to go in? Akeno asked. Irina shrugged. It should be. This cathedral started to lose its appeal before my parents and I moved. I remember Dad coming by and helping them remove all of the symbols of worship so they could be distributed to other churches. There shouldn't be any left, so devils should have nothing to worry about entering. Right? Reyes took a deep breath. Well then, let's go in. The group continued moving up the cobblestone path. Trees encircled them from all sides. They isolated this place, blocking all the paths a person could take to get here except the main entrance several miles back. This cathedral had been built long before Riaz became the overseer for this site, and she made it a point to avoid going anywhere near here. This place had definitely been abandoned for at least several years. Her eyes could see holes in the stone floor where pews once stood as monuments of worship. The marble columns had long since lost their luster. Mildew grew along the bottom of walls, crawling up the sides and showing off the cracks along the surface that came from age and abandonment. Several staircases made of wood were missing stairs, likely from decay, Riaz concluded. However, these were all secondary to her vision. In the back of the room were a set of doors. Burnished bronze and rusted with age, they didn't look like much anymore, though Riaz could easily picture them back when this place had been filled with worshippers. They had probably been an impressive sight back then. Now they were just plain eerie. Well, hello, an obnoxious voice called out. Welcome to this fine establishment of worship devils and gals. I hope you brought your A game on. It wouldn't be any fun if you didn't at least make me work before you all die. Freed. Issei snarled, eyes darting around in fury. Ah, a familiar face. You're the boy with the dragon gauntlet, aren't you? And I see sweet little Ashia has come to visit little old me as well. How are you, my dear? Have you been enjoying your life as this devil's conduct? Quaking at the sound of the familiar voice, Ashia huddled behind Akeno and Issei. Still hiding behind that weak little bitch of a devil, I see, Freed sighed sadly. You really should learn to be a bit more confident. However, will you become something other than dense little slut if you don't? Then again, you're a devil now, so I guess it doesn't matter. Reyes frowned. Was it just her? Or had this man's mouth become even more vulgar than she remembered? Reyes-sama. Reyes put a hand on Ravel's shoulder, steadying the girl. Don't worry. I know this man sounds vulgar and disgusting, and he is vulgar and disgusting, but we've dealt with him before. Doing so again shouldn't be a problem. Oh, but it will be a problem. A very big one, in fact. You see, I'm not the same man I was back then. I'm a new man. I've changed, reformed, you could say. A few bitchy devils aren't going to be enough to stop me this time. Come out and show yourself, Fried Selzen. Irina stepped forward and brandished her Excalibur mimic. Come out and face your punishment. Oh, look. It appears the church has sent 2 of its top sluts to come fetch me. How amusing. A figure jumped down from a balcony, crouching low before standing up. That silver hair, those red eyes, and that deranged expression were familiar to everyone, could only belong to Fried. And it appears you've joined up with bitch tits and her little group of fuck-ups. My, whatever would the Catholic Church think when they learn you've decided to join forces with the devils? Shut up, you damn stray priest. Issei growled, his boosted gear glowing. I'm going to pound your face in for all the trouble you've caused. Fried looked bored by Issei's words. He even yawned. You really don't have much originality, do you? Every time you and I run into each other it's always stray priest this is or stray priest that. Can't you work on your pre-battle banter lines? It gets so boring when the person you fight keeps repeating himself like a fucking twat. If you'd like, I would be more than happy to give you some examples, while I'm slicing your ass up like a motherfucking rapist in a penitentiary. Chuckling was heard from above. Rhys frowned as she looked up. Her devil-enhanced vision could just barely make out the figure several dozen feet above her standing in the balcony. He stood so far back that much of his body was blocked by the balcony itself. You always did have a mouth on you, Fried. I know. I don't know why that is. It's so shameful. Not. Grinning his slasher's grin, Fried made a grand gesture. Now that I have greeted our most esteemed guests, I suppose it's time to introduce you all to your most gracious host. Ladies and sluts, devils, bitch tits, allow me to introduce the man of the motherfucking hour, Valper Galilei. The figure finally stepped forward, and Rhys got a good look at the man who had become known as the Genocide Bishop. Valper was an old man, his hair gray and balding on top. He had a thin mustache and dressed in stately priest's robes, which would have made him look every bit the priest, were it not for the insanity gleaming in his eyes. Valper Galilei, Zenovius stepped forward and glared at the man. In the name of the Catholic Church and the Vatican, I am placing you under arrest for crimes against God and the Church. Crimes against God, you say? The man tilted his head, as if not sure what to make of that statement. However, he eventually nodded. Yes, I suppose in your feeble mind, the things that I have done could be considered crimes against God. You followers of the Church have always been so simple-minded, always scrutinizing the methods and never looking at the results. A deranged smile. But now you will finally see the pride of my research, the results of several years' worth of hard work. Fried, have fun. Valper tossed something down from his perch. It carved a graceful arc through the air, spinning, before embedding itself point first into the ground. A sword, gleaming yellow in the light, pulsating with holy energy. Rhys stared at the sword in worry. Whatever this weapon was, it held far more power than the 2 Excaliburs that Irina and Zenobia were using. Alright. Now this is a sword. Fried's fingers wrapped around the hilt, holding it in a fierce grip as he yanked it from the ground. Then he proceeded to swing it around, laughing like an insane child. This is so much better than the other Excaliburs, old man. Oh, I'm getting goosebumps just holding it. Think of how much better I'll feel using it. I may just orgasm on the spot. That sword. Irina muttered nervously. Valper smiled. Do you like it? Well, incomplete because I lack the other 4 Excalibur pieces. It still holds a lot more power than the original 3 this was made from. You reforged Excalibur? Zenovia's eyes whitened in horror. Indeed I did, Valper nodded. He looked quite pleased with himself. You don't know how long it took to discover the process of reforging Excalibur into a single blade. Years of backbreaking research, of pouring through old documents and tomes, only to come up short. I had almost given up hope when I realized that the method for reforging one of the greatest weapons in the world lay not in the past, but had to be discovered by those living in the present. It took me a long time, but at last, I have done it. And now that I know the method to reforging Excalibur, I can gather all of the pieces and create the blade that was once held up as the greatest holy sword of all time. No, Rhys whispered in horror. The situation was far worse than she had originally thought. She never would have imagined that someone could actually reforge Excalibur into a single blade again. The idea of such a powerful weapon that could be used against devils being made whole caused shivers to run down her spine. Rhys-sama. Ravel. The poor thing was shaking horribly, clearly overwhelmed by the feeling that the holy sword gave off. Rhys quickly moved in front of her, attempting to shield the Phoenix heirs from the effects being near that blade caused. I can't believe you fused them, Irina's coarse voice muttered in wide-eyed horror. You'd better believe it, Fried, his tongue hanging from his mouth, held the sword near his crotch, and began humping the air with it. Oh yeah. Just look at my baby now. It's so big and long and hard. I just can't wait to shove my Excalibur up your cock-stained devil asses. This is blasphemy. Zenobia glared up at Valper. Excalibur was meant to rest in pieces. That was the edict passed down by the church. You have no right fusing these swords together. Even if you were still a member of the church, this would be outside of your jurisdiction. Naive little girl, Valper shook his head in a pitying manner. Swords are meant to be used. To not reforge Excalibur into a single blade is the height of folly and one of the church's greatest failings. His lips curled into a cruel smile. Of course, it seems even Michael is not above using my research to further his goals. You two are proof of this, after all. What do you mean? Irina looked almost afraid of the answer. I mean that you two are artificially created holy sword users, are you not? The words sent ripples through the Gremory group. Irina's and Zenovia's eyes widened. Did you really think I wouldn't recognize my handiwork at play here? From the moment I saw you two standing before me, bearing your Excaliburs, I knew that the church should use my research without me. Irina, is a sword, is this true? Yes, Irina looked pained, especially when she saw the expression on Kiba's face. It's true, I'm not a true holy sword wielder. I was given a gem, which Michael said was the blessings of God, and that it would allow me to wield a holy sword. I didn't know it was actually the result of this man's work. Alper chuckled. I suppose I should take the knowledge that Michael isn't afraid to use my research as a compliment, although I highly doubt he has the will necessary to actually sacrifice his own subjects. He probably found some way of getting the genetic code needed without killing anyone, thinking it would be more humane or something. I'll never understand why some people are so afraid of getting their hands dirty. And what do you plan on doing now that you have reforged Excalibur? Ryuz asked. Why, that should be obvious. Valper actually had the gall to chuckle. I plan on helping my master start a war. I'll start by killing you, Ryuz Gremory, and then I'll send your corpse to your dear older brother in the underworld. Perhaps I should send it in pieces. What do you think I should send first? I think Serzich's Lucifer would become quite enraged if he saw his younger sister's pretty little head packaged in a box. I'll even wrap it up and put a nice bow on it. The older man sighed in pleasure, like he was sipping a fine wine. It'll be just like Christmas. Ah, but then, you devils don't celebrate Christmas, do you? Perhaps a birthday, then. Ryuz gritted her teeth. You're insane. Insane. Do you even know the definition of that word? Insanity is merely the act of doing the same thing over and over again, and expecting different results each time. No, I am quite sane, thank you very much. Enough of this. Zenobia shouted, holding her hand out to her side. The air around her hissed, wind whooping about, turning into a fierce gale. Light erupted from her hand, a multitude of beams that joined together, forming a hexagram, a word that ripped a literally hole in space. She reached in, slender fingers wrapping around something inside, a hilt, which she pulled out from the depths of the space. Broad, long, and with a straight edge, the blade she brought to bear was unmistakable, as was the power that wafted from its frame like a hurricane. This is Durandal, Zenobia pointed the weapon at Fried. I can't control him very well yet. He has a tendency to not listen to what I say, and he likes destroying everything he touches. I normally keep him sealed, because I don't want him destroying anything, but in this instance, I don't think I'll mind. Ryuz shared the surprise of her fellow peerage. Even Irina seemed surprised. Oddly enough, and she got a sinking feeling upon noticing, their foes didn't seem to be worried. Oh dear, Valper muttered. I don't remember doing any research on how to make artificial sword wielders for Durandal, and I'm almost positive that Michael doesn't have the guts necessary to research a method. Tell me, my dear, are you one of those natural holy sword wielders? That's right. Unlike Irina, I am a natural, and I will use Durandal to slay you in Fried Selzen where you stand for crimes against the church. So I see. And judging from your actions, I can only presume that this is your trump card. Valper's cruel smile came back with a vengeance. Very well then, since you have shown me your trump card, please allow me to show you mine. They stalked out of the shadow in droves, cloaks wavering as they moved, steel greaves pounding against the stone floor with heavy thuds, and the dull clanking of metal. They were like something out of a fairy tale. Armor glimmered with sparse trickles of moonlight streaming in from a hole in the ceiling. Glowing red eyes burned from deep within the regal frames of iron-wrought helms reminiscent of armor from the Holy Crusades. Halberds gleamed brightly from scant traces of moonlight. Ryuz and the others took a step back in fear. Are these? They are not Knight Templars, if that is what you are thinking. Valper still stood on the edge of the balcony and looked down at them with undisguised pleasure. Most unfortunately, a group of fanatical knights like the Templars would not betray the church to join me, although they might. Once they discover that two of their holy sword users are working with devils. But, no, these forms that you see before you, they are another one of my creations. They are suits of armor, empty husks that have been animated through the power of human sacrifice. The power of human sacrifice. Zenobia looked physically ill. Irina clamped a hand over her mouth, trace amounts of vomit leaking from between her fingertips. Indeed. When I began working on creating an artificial holy sword user, the problem that I ran into was that none of the people who were selected had enough of the genetic material required to wield a holy sword. My theory was that, if I could acquire and combine the genetic code required from all of them, and transform it into a physical form, a crystal, then I could create a person capable of wielding holy swords. Their genetic material. Kiba looked torn between rage and sickness. Riaz understood how he felt. Even she was disgusted by this man's depravity. Yes, their genetic material. Alper cupped a hand to his chin. It took a while, but my research finally gave me the means of creating artificial holy sword users. However, afterwards, I ended up with all of this excess material that I did not know what to do with. My first thought was to just throw it all away. I had what I wanted, after all, but then another thought occurred to me, a question, if you will. What if I could somehow use this excess material to create something else? Ria's stomach tightened in disgust. She felt like vomiting. Issei looked sick, and Ashia whimpered behind him, her fragile form quivering as she mewed pathetically. Next to the Mechano shook, not in fear or disgust, but in anger. Kiba seemed to be of like mind, while Zenobia and Irina fought of their own disgust at how this man had perverted humanity to further his own agenda. Oh? Ravel nearly fell to the floor, and would have, had Kaneko not caught her. I've got you. Ravel cast her friend a wan smile. Thank you. You're welcome. Above them all, standing on high, as if they were beneath him, Valper basked in his own sense of accomplishment. The genetic code, the material necessary to complete my project, was but one small part of the human psyche, the soul, if you wish to use the term. And that's when it occurred to me, Valper's grin made Ria's stomach churn. What if I could use the rest of these souls to create an army? An army of undying, unyielding golems who would never disobey my will. Who would help ensure that my master's plans to embroil this world in war succeeded. And look at my accomplishments. Look at my creations. I have succeeded in raising an army that obeys my every whim. And all it took was the sacrifice of a few hundred human lives. You're mad, Riaz declared. Genius and madness have always gone hand in hand, girl. One cannot be a genius without being a trace touched in the head. But that is fine. I do not expect you people to understand the greatness of what I've accomplished here. Now go forth, my army. Go forth and rip these devils and those two fools of the church apart. Rend them. Tear their flesh from their bones. Show me that I was not wrong to give you these forms. Like the turning of a giant, spoke the figures lurched forward, slowly, ponderously. Their heavy frames took thunderous steps that reverberated along the ground. They closed in on the group, who quickly began backing away. Zenobia swiveled her durandal from free to these forms, but they did not slow, they did not halt. Instead they continued inexorably forward, as if incapable of doing anything else. And then they spoke as one, their voices a sick grating rasp filled with pain. Help us, release us. Please. The demonic sword Kiba had conjured dropped to his side. His eyes widened in horror. No, those voices it couldn't be. Ho? Do you recognize some of those voices? Valper studied the young man with a hungry gleam in his eyes. Ah, now I understand. If I am not mistaken, you're that sword birth user we had in our clutches at one point. I had actually planned on using you last, since I felt you were prime research material. How unfortunate that I never got the chance to see what gains I could have achieved from experimenting on you. Kiba gritted his teeth as culling intent wafted from his body. Valper didn't even seem to notice. He just nodded his head in thought. Yes, it is no wonder that you of all people would recognize some of these voices. Sick chuckling bubbled from a mouth with a macabre's grin. After all, many of these golems were once friends of yours, if I am not mistaken. It only makes sense that you would recognize them. The ironclad figures continued forward, their cries of pain, of despair, filling the cathedral. Help us. Kiba. Tears spilled from Kiba's eyes as the voices became more distinguishable. Riaz could hear them, the voices of young children, boys and girls who had their lives ended tragically short. You monster, his voice was a low snarl that soon gathered volume. I can't believe you would do something like this. Haven't you done enough to them? Haven't my friends suffered enough? My dear boy, whatever are you getting upset over? You should be thanking me. Kiba froze. Thanking you? Of course. After all, it is because I decided not to discard the rest of their remains that you now have this chance to see them again. Even better, you can die by their hands for failing to protect them. Think of it as my way of helping you repent for the crime of letting all of your friends die while you ran away and became a devil. Don't listen to him, Kiba. Riaz shouted. He's just trying to get under your skin. Your friends would never regret that you lived. They gave their lives so that you could escape. Don't let this man's tainted words destroy the faith you have in the people who loved you. Kiba. Kiba, help me, Kiba. The suits of armor powered by human souls brought their halberds to bear. Kiba stood there, his shoulders shaking, tears spilling from his eyes as he stared into the darkened depths of those knightly helms. No? Kiba, enough please. Kiba. Stop. Kiba. Kiba. Stop it. Without warning, a large circle appeared underneath Kiba. Dozens of demonic swords sprang from the ground, jutting like stakes and skewering the human-powered suits of armor. But this did not stop their advance, they did not halt. Metal squealed as the blades struck armored plating, yet the swords did not penetrate, and the incoming horde of enslaved human souls continued advancing. Alper Galilei. Kiba roared as he held up his sword, its frame wreathed in darkness. Stained. Black. Impure. There were the manifestations of Kiba's hatred. I am going to murder you for what you've done to my friends. Alper did not seem worried. If anything, he looked quite pleased. By all means, be my guest. Just know that the only way to kill me is to go through your friends. But can you really do it? Can you raise your blade against the people you once cherished as family? Can you betray them like this again? Kiba Ria's heart ached at seeing her knight like this, shaking with rage and indecision. What should she do? How could she help him overcome this? What the hell kind of question is that? Issei shouted. Of course he can. Look at them. Those people that you've imprisoned in those suits of armor are suffering. They're hurting, and you're the one who's hurting them. Kiba wouldn't be betraying his friends. He'd be helping them achieve peace by ensuring that you can no longer use them for your own purpose. He's going to kill your ass, old man. And as his friend, I'm going to help him do it. Everybody stared at Issei in surprise. Even Rias was surprised. That speech, those words, even that stance, all of it was familiar to the Gremory group. Naruto would often take that same stance when doling out long-winded speeches. Issei, Kiba's stunned look hardened after a moment. He nodded to his friend, then faced the oncoming horde. Kiba, please help us. It hurts, Kiba, it hurts. And are suffering. My friends, the tears had long dried up, but anguish remained on his face, mixing with unwavering determination. I will do as you asked. I will end your suffering. I will lay you to rest and ensure that this man can never desecrate your souls again. The words were spoken with resolve, stronger than steel, indomitable, unwavering. A wind began to kick up around him. The blade he summoned, Holy Eraser, vanished, dispersing into particles. A circle appeared underneath him, and from its depths, a new sword emerged, its form jagged, saw-like, gleaming a dull black that seemed to repel light, as if disdaining from it. Kiba grabbed the blade and pulled it free. He resumed his stance and prepared for battle. With this blade, Soul Severance, I will break the chains that have enslaved my friends to you. Standing on a large mountain, a sea of viridian laid out below and bright blue above, Uzumaki Naruto examined his surroundings with a bright smile. It was good to be back in his world. Now all he had to do was get back home. It should be easy enough. Why did you not say goodbye to the others? The curious voice asked from above. Naruto looked up to see his companion sitting on his shoulders, her hands lightly gripping his hair. He smiled. Because I didn't see much point, he admitted. Since I agreed to help you, I'm sure we'll all meet again. Besides, he grinned, I left them all with such a wonderful parting gift. If I said farewell, or see you later, it would have diminished the effect. The two paused, a moment of silence ensuing. For some reason, they could almost hear the abject screams, anger and outrage from several hundred humans and devils, as they all discovered that someone had tattooed numerous vulgar images onto their faces. Naruto absently wondered how long it would take those tattoos to wear off. They were enhanced with Sage Chakra, so it would probably take a few months at least. I don't understand why you enjoy playing pranks like that, came the bland response. And I don't understand why you'd want to return to a place that's void of life, Naruto would have shrugged, but couldn't since his companion was riding his shoulders. Because I prefer the silence of the dimensional gap. I was born in silence, and so it is comforting to me. Oh yeah? Well, I think the only reason you find silence comforting is because you've never had a true friend to share the joys of living. Naruto patted his companion's leg. But don't worry. You've got me now. I'm going to be your friend, and I'll show you that there is more to life than simply existing in a void. I'll show you what it means to truly live. So you have told me. By the way, are those people you've gathered going to be alright without you? They will be fine. I have gathered them for the sake of fulfilling my ambition, however, that doesn't mean I command them. They have sworn their allegiance to me in order to gain power, but I'm mostly just a figurehead. I let them do what they want, and I aid them when they ask for power, but beyond that, I don't take any part in what they do. Isn't that kind of irresponsible? Well, Biku, Fei-chan and their group seems nice enough. Those people in the devil and hero factions are a bunch of douchebags. I'm not sure letting them run amok is a really good idea. It doesn't matter, was the dismissive response. I don't really care what they do, just so long as they help me return to the dimensional gap and achieve everlasting silence. Naruto sighed. He didn't think Office was a bad person, dragon, whatever, but her desire to return home superseded everything to the point where it seemed like she had a complete disregard for other people. She was, it seemed, a very selfish person, yet also strangely pure and naive. Ah, whatever, Naruto said at last. Spend a little more time with me, and I'll be getting you to sing a new tune. Pretty soon you'll forget all about that dimensional gap, the Cow's Brigade, and will instead start caring more about other people, and having fun with me. Fun? That's right, fun. You're going to be living with me for the foreseeable future. Give me a few days, a week at most, and I guarantee that you'll eventually start wondering why you ever wanted to return to some void between worlds. That's an awfully bold statement, a bland response. She clearly didn't believe him. Of course, Naruto thumped his chest. Have you already forgotten who I am? I'm Uzumaki Naruto, Devil Ninja Extraordinaire, the greatest sage of Mount Maiboku, and the soon-to-be most powerful being in existence. There's nothing that I can't do. His smug words were answered with a shrug. If you say so. I do say so. Naruto's hands gently wrapped around the girl's legs. He then began trekking down the mountain. Now then, I believe we have dilly-dallied enough. You'll understand why I'm so confident once we're back home. Speaking of home, do you even know how to get there from here? That's what I thought. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed. If you want a next part of this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. And also check out the other videos that I have created, and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.